Okay. So, wow, that
Wonderful
was fun.
start to the
I know, right?
Afternoon? I
Afternoon,
was
yeah.
gonna say morning, but it's not.
It's the stabilizer boot camp. Something had to go wrong.
Hopefully that will be it.
Oh,
So,
goodness. Okay.
We
So
are.
hopefully you guys can hear us. And, oh, look, it's telling us we're live. Great.
Yay.
Timing.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Wow, what a
So
weird start.
that was interesting.
It was a very interesting start. Yes. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
It is a weird Tuesday. It doesn't feel like Tuesday.
It does not at all.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Great. That's perfect.
Good to know.
So, yeah, we have kind of a little bit of a new setup over here, so we don't know where anything is.
We've rearranged things a little bit, and hopefully that camera doesn't tip off backwards.
I know, it's kind of close.
And, yeah, we've got lots of things to share with you today, and a lot of information, lots of stuff to show and talk about, and
yeah.
We both have a little bit different colored skin than the last
Yeah,
time.
we both got a little sun
bit of
this
sun.
weekend.
Yeah, so that's not my bra strap showing. That's
Not
actually
enough, yeah, sunscreen.
color of my skin now.
Oh,
But
goodness.
really, that's interesting.
Well, if it says that this is at 6 p.m., I'm going to assume that it's a different time zone.
Time zone.
Yeah.
That would be a good guess because I got nothing.
Right.
So
hello
hello to everyone that's saying hi. So thanks for checking in over there.
Yeah, we see Marilyn and a couple Pams and
Connie and Cheryl
Connie
and Louisa.
Yeah. So yeah, we were outside.
We were outside for a little bit. This all happened in like 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
And then I did sit outside for about a half an hour yesterday, and that was about all I could take.
Yeah.
And I was like, ow, I'm going back in where it's not hot.
Absolutely.
So then I hid the rest of the time. So
oh, well, Louisa, I'm not really sure. We've got lots of people watching from YouTube, so it's obviously working. Yeah. So, Michelle, are you in Florida all year round now, or are you just visiting? So, and Charlotte, hi. Mary, hi.
Hello. Hi, Mom.
Yeah, we have a good group of people starting. Should we just get started?
I think we should, because we have so much stuff. And honestly, depending upon questions and all of these variables, we don't know exactly how long it's going to take. So we should probably jump in.
Absolutely.
And get going.
But please feel free to ask questions.
Yes,
so type
absolutely.
in your questions.
That is part of the gig today. So we do want you to ask questions. So if you are unfamiliar on how to do that, you see the little chat thing going over there on the side. You should have a little bar there that you can type. So you need to put your mouse there and click. And then type whatever your question is, and then hit enter. And send, and
it might say that you have to be registered if you're on YouTube.
If you haven't logged in, it will probably tell you that you'll need to do that to ask a question or post a comment. So.
Otherwise, we don't know who it is.
Exactly.
So
we will get going here.
Yeah, let's get going.
So we're going to switch the screen around a little bit and hopefully live up to all that excitement that you guys are getting excited to learn.
Yes.
So,
all right.
We are going to work off of this.
The buttons work.
The buttons are working. Yay! Step one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I have two mouses over here and a keypad to worry about. So I'm
Don't bump the wrong one.
I'm going to screw something up, I'm sure.
Something's going to go great.
Yeah. But
that's where I thought June 7th came from. That's what I was reading.
Oh, yes.
So.
You were not wrong.
We made it longer. Just better news for you guys. It's all good. So,
yes.
As you can read, if you registered, so it's free to register, and we know a lot of you have already done so, but if not, you still can. We didn't take it down or anything just because we started. You can register for free at our website, and by registering, we will then have your email, and we will send you a coupon code that is valid from now. And even though this says June 7th, we actually decided to extend that a little bit longer for you guys. So all the way through the weekend.
Yes.
All the way up through the 12th, actually, you can use that coupon code through the website because, of course, we're not open on Sunday. So you can use that. And what is it good for?
30% off stabilizer rolls.
Stabilizer rolls.
Yes.
So no bundles, no combos or whatnot, individual rolls of stabilizers. It will take that 30% off of the regular price. Can't combine it, of course, with other coupons or discounts. So that is better than if you get a normal discount on things. It's going to be better than that normal discount, but it's not in addition to that normal discount. So
that's right.
Just FYI.
And so registering on our website is free. You do have to register before the end of today's event in order to get the unique code, coupon code. But if you were watching this and it is not live and you didn't pre-register and it's next week and it's still Tuesday,
it's still the date of today, then you can still register.
Absolutely.
So as long as it's still May, you can still register and get that coupon code.
Absolutely. And then our bag lady, which we are trying very hard to call it the Leabu Bag Club.
Club.
Yes, the Leabu Bag Club, formerly known as Bag Lady. We encourage guys to join too. Everyone, it's all inclusive. Everybody. So to get our special bag, those bags will be available until they're sold out.
Yep.
So we have a limited supply of them. And we have a number in the back.
We need to adjust because it's not as the right number.
That's right.
Because we wanted to have a little bit of fun with it just to get started.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to that in just a few minutes.
Yes. So we'll do that. And then should we get right into it?
Let's just jump right in.
All right. So we're going to be talking about the stabilizers that are going to be included in your Bag Lady bundle.
Yep.
Or Leabu Bag bundle. So they're all under
really
here.
hard.
I didn't put them in any special order, but
So
the toppers are going to be over there.
Okay, so here's one.
Yep.
Here's two.
Yes. So what do we use toppers for? How do we get rid of them? And is it really important for us to use them?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Not all the time, which some places, if you have been to a stabilizer event, they're trying to sell you stuff. I mean, which of course, so are we. I mean, if it comes right down to it, that is part of our job. So yes, we do want you to buy things, but we want you to buy what you actually need. We don't want you to just buy it and have it sit on your shelves. So are you ever going to use these? Yes, absolutely, but you're not going to use them in every project. So when do you use them? When you need them. So let's talk about when that happens to be.
Absolutely.
So I have something. I have a topper on. I buried it, but I have something. Here we go. So this right here, generally you would put a topper on something that has loft. So we pulled that one out, right? There we go. All right. So these are the two types. We have the wash away and the heat away toppers.
That wasn't what I wanted to do.
Oh, what did you do?
I made it small. So I wasn't trying to do that. There we go.
A different button.
It is. And I can't make this one. There we go.
There we go. So we have wash away, which literally means, oh, sorry. I just pulled them out like they were.
You did.
I just set them down.
Yeah.
So we have wash away, heat away. And these happen to be OESD. There are many types of different brands that have them. They all basically work the same way. So depending upon what your product is going to depend upon which one that you do. So do you want to?
Yep.
That's going to be hard, isn't it?
It's going to be a challenge today.
There we go.
There we go.
So let's pop forward here and let's talk about the heat first.
Okay.
So I tend to lean towards heat first if I can use heat. And the reason being is it stays there. So
it's harder to get rid of.
It is harder to get rid of. But sometimes I want that.
Yes.
So a lot of times when I'm using a heat topper, it's going to be on a towel.
Yep.
And the reason that I'm using it is to get all of those little terry loops or the fuzz kind of things. And I'm flattening that down so that I'm working on a level playing field.
Yep.
That is what your topper is going to do for you. If you have something that is not level, you are creating a level surface for the embroidery to be stitched on.
Yes.
That's what your topper is really going to end up doing for you.
Yes.
And they both do the same thing. It's a matter of how you're going to get rid of it. So
Yep.
that is how you decide which ones you're going to use.
Yep.
So sometimes the design is going to decide which one you're going to use, because you might have tiny little letters that you can't possibly get rid of
Absolutely.
the heat way,
Yeah.
because your iron just can't get to it.
Yeah.
And so there's no way that will ever disappear outside of rinsing it away.
Right.
And so that might be the deciding factor, is what the design looks like. Even if you really wanted it to be that heat away based on where you're putting it, sometimes that just won't work.
Yeah, it just, it's not conducive to
the type of design.
Right. Right. We have to pay attention to the type of design.
To what you're stitching, not only where you're stitching it, but what you're putting on there too. So a really small font is a perfect example of something that sometimes will change what is happening. So
yeah, absolutely.
What we ding for?
We're down one.
Maybe we should catch that up. Should we catch that up?
We should, right?
So we were at 50.
Yeah.
So this back here is, should be able to just pull down, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I just had to grab it.
Okay.
Oh, see, there's two.
So there's two. So we were actually at 50. And now we're at 49?
Yep.
All right.
Woo.
So now you should just chuck those.
Yep.
Ta-da! Okay. Because that's the fun part.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so someone asked, are you talking about toppers? And yes, we are talking about toppers. So they are products that you put on top.
So let's show that
stuff to keep the nap or the grain or something from coming through. So let me
switch back up there.
A little bit bigger. There we go.
So this is something that I have obviously in the hoop. We're going to talk about the product and the stitch out and everything more a little bit later. But this is actually a water-soluble topper. I was doing it more for a demo than anything else, so I didn't really care what type of topper I was putting on it. But this is literally what you need to do. You only need the topper to fit the size of your design. You don't need to have it in the hoop. You can tape it down if you would like. You guys know me, I don't really tape. It's not really my gig. Once you get the stitches to catch on it, you can usually just let it go. If the needle is going to be moving around a lot, it's really easy for the edge to get pulled and move.
Absolutely.
So again, it does depend on the design, whether I will tape or not. If I know it's going to be in danger of catching the edge of the foot, then I'll tape it, but in general I don't. A basting stitch is also a really nice thing for your topper to hold that topper down, to put a basting stitch and just grab that and hold that in place.
Absolutely.
So this is what we are currently talking about, either a heat away or a wash away topper. And they are both considered to be tear away. So when we say get rid of as much as possible, you're going to tear away as much as you possibly could before you either rinse or iron. You're going to get rid of the bulk just by literally removing it. You're not going to throw all of this in the sink or whatnot. You're going to remove the bulk of that first.
Correct.
So
that is what a topper is.
That is what the toppers are. So if we go back to the individual pieces, let's talk about the heat. So when we are trying to remove heat,
I made daddy-o of the patio yesterday on a terry kitchen towel. It called for leather. I used heat to go, finished, and then the light bulb went on. How to iron over leather. Yeah, that's one of those things where probably won't work real great.
No.
You can try to put like a topper or like a heat pressing cloth on top.
So if I am remembering right, that is actually a pretty open design. So you have pretty big sections. You can probably tear away all of that topper. So with tweezers, even inside of like the A's and the O's and whatnot, inside the letters themselves. So you should be able to take tweezers and rip off as it tears, like we were just talking about, and not actually have to iron any portion of that. I think you'll be able to get all of it off without. In that case, I would have switched to the water soluble instead of the heat to go. I would have used the Stitch 2.0 because it's leather and you don't want to put iron specifically directly on that. But again, in this case, I think you can tear it, so I think you'll still be okay. I think you can get it all off.
Yeah.
But great point and great question.
Yep. And then one of the things, so Pam mentioned, thanks for listing the other brands. So we did have someone ask if we had a list. I don't have a master list, but we did try to make sure that you could reference this video back. And while the OESD Heat to Go is what is in the Leabu bag, the other brands are listed below, so those are other options if you have those already in your arsenal.
And they will function and remove basically the same way.
Yeah.
There might be a slight difference in like the degree that's written on the
check the instructions, but the concept is the same.
You should read the instructions to check the degrees on your iron or that kind of thing, but the basic gist of all of them throughout this afternoon is going to be the same for all of the brands. So for the future reference of the next couple of hours, what you see listed at the top is what is in the bag. The ones listed at the bottom are the other brands that are available and what that would be called.
Right, and that we may or may not carry all the time. Certainly we can get
we have access to, but we don't necessarily have in stock at all times. So we do have actually a list typed up somewhere around here of all of those different ones, but this is actually way better because it gives you the instructions and the information about it than just the names. So referring to this video is going to be much more helpful than that list. But we do have something. If you are in dire need, you can contact us and we can probably help you with that.
Yep.
Okay, so that is Heat 2.0. Heat to Go or Heat and Gone or whatever it is your favorite. One thing that I want to mention about when you are using the heat, you don't want to have too high. If you overheat this, it will ball up and it won't go away. And you will end up with it in these hard little plastic balls on the, which, never mind. But you don't want, it makes the towel, you can't use that spot because it's literally this rough texture. It's terrible and it doesn't go away. You have to literally cut them off and then that's not a good thing.
Right.
And this is a press, not an iron situation. Again, we've talked about pressing versus ironing before.
We'll say that
very,
a lot today.
very important. If you do this with your iron instead of this, you will also end up with those nice little plastic balls on this instead because it literally just turns that stuff underneath there and it forms these little knots of plastic, which you don't want.
No.
So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Really, really don't do that. So make sure you are pressing at the correct medium heat. If you overheat it, it's not going to go away. And I can tell you that from experience because I was always like, oh, it'll go away. I'll just crank it all the way up. Yeah, that doesn't work. You actually want a medium, lower heat than what your brain is going to tell you you're wanting, not all the way up. So little trick on that guy here.
Yep. And then our next topper is the OESD Stitch H2O. So this one is a water-soluble topping. It doesn't stick to your embroidery foot. It has a nice texture to the top. And again, it rinses away, so as opposed to the heat away.
Right.
The reason Lisa was talking about sometimes using the heat away is because if it's underneath something, your letters and things like that, it will not come out. It stays with your product.
Right.
Whereas the
water
soluble ones,
when you wash it, it's going to also wash away, where this one won't. So if you're looking for something to create a barrier between the towel and your thread, you need to have the heat instead of the water because the water will wash right out.
Right.
So it's very, if that is your goal, is to create and maintain a barrier between those two pieces. So for instance, through multiple washings, those terry loops can work their way through your threads, and you'll start seeing terry loops in between on letters, and if you put a tree, and so your branches will become fuller branches.
Yes, absolutely.
You'll have little terry loops coming through them. If you use the heat, it will literally stay in there, and there'll be a barrier between the towel and the thread, and it won't enable it to do that.
And there are other products that you can use that will
embroidery toppings,
like
that.
Yeah, that are permanent and can stay in your towel. So if wash away and or heat away is not an appropriate option for you, there are other options out there.
Which those weren't always there. So, for a long time, this was really the only thing that wasn't an available option out there to do that. But the embroidery topping is a nice alternative, and it actually will give you a nice full look of color too. So it's a nice option.
Absolutely. So you have basically two options for toppers. You have one that will go away with your iron, and one that will go away with water. And that is essentially it.
So do you know how to tell the difference? I know you know how to tell the difference.
Yeah, bumps versus
bumps versus no bumps.
Yes.
So you have the measles, or so your heat topping has one side that has bumps on it, and the water is smooth on both sides.
Yeah, it looks a little bit more like really thick saran wrap.
Saran wrap, yep.
Yeah, with texture.
So that is how you can, in your drawers, if you're looking at them and you're like, oh, I lost the label, how do I tell the difference between one and the other? Your heat is going to have bumps on one side and smooth on the other, and the water wash away is going to be smooth on both sides.
Yep.
So that is those two guys.
All right, now let's talk about sticky stabilizers. This could be anyone.
Not that one.
Oh, here's one.
Tear away. Cut away. Nope. Nope.
That's a sticky one. I think we have 3.
That's it.
Yep. Okay, so somebody asked, let's put that up there. Let me find the right mouse here. Why would you want to use soluble on anything other than leather? Well, Lisa mentioned earlier, sometimes the project itself, you can't use heat for it. So if that's an instance where you've got certain types of fabric, sometimes you can't heat them to get it away. Sometimes the letters are too close together that, again, you can't quite get in there to get it to go away. So water is a better option. Sometimes you only have one in your arsenal.
Right.
I encourage everybody to have both, but sometimes you don't.
Yep. So this shirt in particular that I showed, I have used both heat and water. Water is a lot easier to deal with because I don't know how many of you out there do work for people. This is a very common type of shirt that someone says, hey, I need these shirts done, with my company logo or something like that, or we're doing this company outing. Could you put this special something or other, and I need 50 of them. And you go, okay, because you're a nice person, right? And so you agree to it.
You say yes.
And then they give you the box of shirts, and you look at them, and it's this stretchy, moisture wicking thing, and you go, oh crap, that's not going to stitch very easily. It's going to be really, really hard. Thread sinks into this really, really easily. And so it's not that it's got loft.
It's got a lot of stretch.
It's got a lot of stretch. The thread just likes to
just bury.
It just buries itself.
And
it doesn't stitch easily and look nice very, very easily. So you have to do a lot of stuff to make these look nice. And so a topper is one of those things. And the water soluble is certainly an option because once you've stitched it, as long as you've done other things, it's going to be easy to get rid of.
Yeah, it's really simple to get rid of, and because sometimes, like she said, like if I'm going to give a bunch of t-shirts or a bunch of sweatshirts or something like that, it's so much easier to just be able to just rinse these all out.
Throw them in the wash on a rinse.
Exactly.
And you're done.
And you're done. Whereas you have to be a little bit more careful with the heat away. And, if it doesn't come off like in between these then I feel like I'm using my tweezers.
Right.
So, again.
And then you have danger of pulling the threads of the item instead of pulling off, you know. So water soluble is much easier to deal with. So depends on what it is that you're doing, but it's certainly a much easier thing to manage.
Yes.
So depending upon what you're doing, it's kind of the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that helped, Charlotte.
So sticky stabilizer.
Stickies.
Yes.
I like sticky.
When do I use it? How do I get rid of it? And what's the difference between cutaway, wash away, and tear away? So those are the questions of the day.
Right? We're going to ask that and talk about those answers for all the different types.
Yes.
So when do we use it?
So,
hard to hoop items.
Yeah.
That is kind of the key with a sticky. So if you have a sticky, what you're doing is basically creating a big sticker in your hoop because it's something that you can't put in the hoop. So you're having this big sticker, you can just slap whatever it is on there instead of hooping that item.
Can't put it in maybe for a variety of reasons. Could be that it's smaller than the hoop.
Baby onesie, baby clothes, so on and so
Yep.
forth.
Or could be that
Too thick.
or can't put it in the hoop, and we'll talk about those types of things a little bit later. So essentially we have the sticky tearaway. The thing that I want to point out, I mentioned this to Lisa today, so sticky stabilizers are not meant to be, I mean, they're sticky, but they're not so sticky, except for when you leave it on. So if you leave it on for any length of time, it is on for the remainder of your life. So I have this little cat here, and this is a sticky tearaway, and it is just, it's stuck on. It's not coming off. It will be on here for, and I imagine if I washed it enough times, I might get it to come out a little bit, but it's going to be there for until the end of time. So hold it off
when
quickly.
You are working with a adhesive backed stabilizer, you want to finish your project and remove it.
Yes.
It's not a, oh, I'll get to that next month kind of thing. You want to do whatever it is that you're doing, finish it, and then come back and work on whatever's next.
Yep.
So they definitely can leave a lot of goop and stuff behind. And that being said, we always get asked questions about, well, what is it going to do to my needle? So, you know, it's certainly something you want to keep your eye out for.
Yeah.
Never a bad thing to keep alcohol wipes so you can clean your needle.
Yeah, you can usually see it. Like if my needle is getting garfy, you can see it almost has like a fuzzball on it. And that's when you know.
Just wipe it off and keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to change the needle. Just clean it off and keep going. Especially if you're going to be doing more sticky, because it's just going to gum up another one. So
exactly.
You might as well just keep going.
Yeah. So we use sticky tear away when this is super complicated, when we want to tear it away.
So not to be like mean or anything, but you know, if it's not important what the back of it looks like right away, I'm using tear away.
Right.
Because it'll clean itself off sooner or later, right? You know, so I can tear away the gist of it right away. And if the little bits in between, it'll wash out or so on and so forth. If I need it to look beautiful right away, then I'm using the wash away, because I can rinse it and it all goes away immediately. So I don't use the cutaway very often. It's very, very rare.
Right. So Pam asked a question: what's the difference between ultra clean and tear away plus versus stable stick tear away? So ultra clean and tear away is not that's a fusible. It isn't a sticky. So this one is like a peel and stick. It's like a sticker. So that's really the difference. It's how you get it adhered. Yes, the application of how it adheres. So the Ultra Clean and Tear Away Plus, their plus is either heat or water activated, not sticky. So this is really just like a sticker. It's important to make sure that you hoop it in the correct direction. Otherwise, your sticky is on the bottom of your hoop, which makes it really hard to hold your fabric.
Yeah.
It stays
Sticks
down
right
on
on
your machine.
that machine. Really, really good.
So we use the sticky tearaway when we need to be able to get something in our hoop that we can't actually hoop. And we use
sometimes it's just easier. We have a lot of customers who just love it so much because hoops are kind of like their nemesis, for lack of a better, and they just, they either have, an arthritis issue where it hurts, and they don't have to strain so much, so they hoop the stabilizer and then they can get things centered so much easier, those kinds of things. So, if you struggle a lot, this could be an easier answer for you to not have that struggle, because you can use the markings, you can draw with the grids and so on and so forth. You can really get things right where you want them to be versus struggling and fighting with, nope, that didn't go where I wanted, pop it back out and start over again kind of things. The sticky can be a much faster way of hooping. So we certainly have heard that. It is going to end up being a more expensive way for you, because once you start getting into this specialty, quote unquote, it does tend to cost a little bit more. So certainly keep that in mind.
We'll answer Pat's question about the needles in just a second. Yep. And which is also Cindy's question. So we're going to talk about the 3 stickies, and then we'll talk about those needles. And goods, bads.
Good, bad, and ugly.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I really like it. We certainly see it a lot. We have a lot of customers that are using Kimberbell products and doing projects that are they use them a lot for their blanks. It's a very common thing that they're going to use either their tearaway or a wash away. We don't see a lot of the cutaway.
We don't, but it is a really nice project. Like, if you want to make something, but you know that it would be great if you had stabilizer in afterwards. So maybe you want to make like a zippered pouch or something like that, and you want to go ahead and you are going to maybe have a lining in there, and it's a detailed design. The Cutaway is going to give you a lot more support for your design than your tearaway does. It's a lot more substantial. It really works great for wall hangings and things like that. So if you want to put something up on your wall and you want to embellish something, anytime where the project A is hard to hoop, and we're going to talk a little bit about like the ring around a design, where the ring around the design would not be super noticeable. So if it's something that's a little bit thicker, I have used the Cutaway sticky on the back of some of my towels too. One of the nice things about doing that, like if you're putting something on like the band of a towel, it really helps to hold the design over time, because sometimes they kind of get wrinkly after a while.
Absolutely. Well, you see that on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just a towel, or it's very common after multiple washes. We were talking about my sweatshirt. It's been through, it's like 15 years old.
Right.
It's been through the wash. I couldn't tell you how many times that thing's been washed. And when you have tablewares and things like that have been washed multiple times, it's just part of the gig. It's going to start to wrinkle over time.
Right.
And so when you have a cutaway, that means it's going to stay there and help maintain. You're going to have a lot less of that wrinkling over time, because that stabilizer will stay behind the design. So you're getting that same ease as your sticky tearaway, but you're getting the strength of the cutaway with that same ease.
Yeah, like regular jean jackets, jeans, like if you really want to put some embellishments down in your jeans, and it'll really hold its shape. Because our jeans don't really hold their shape.
No, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later too, of how stretchy jean is these days. You know, it's not like it used to be when you buy a pair of jeans and it was like heavy, thick.
Right, held you in.
It's just let it all hang out these days. That stretch is something else, It
is.
So,
it's comfortable, but
and, I mean, I certainly have done my fair share of jean jackets, but I have always, because I didn't have this, I've always fused Cutaway and then put it on a sticky tearaway, which
Yeah.
I suppose is fine. You know, I'm getting the
concept.
same
Yep.
concept, but I could have taken less steps.
Yeah.
Having, you know, going that route.
But these three, if they say sticky, they're going to be more expensive. So
absolutely, you're heading into that
right.
specialty area that if it is going to be a specialty, it's going to have a little bit higher price tag.
Yeah, and
So.
whenever you have the option to stick something to it, so your fabric is being stuck to your stabilizer now, whether it be the tearaway or the cutaway or the washaway that we're going to talk about in a second, you are definitely going to get a flatter design because
Absolutely.
the fabric can't distort.
It can't distort if it's kind of like fusing without the iron.
Yes.
It's giving you that stability without having to actually fuse.
Yep.
And so you're having half of it kind of in there. Now that doesn't, of course, maintain it after the fact.
Right.
But at least while you're stitching, you're having that strength.
Exactly.
So.
And then we have Aqua Mesh Plus. So Aqua Mesh Plus, that's this one over here, yes, is basically a sticky wash away. So you have your tearaway. So if you don't want it to stay with your project, you can tear it away. It's going to be the least expensive out of your 3 stickies.
Right.
Then you have your cutaway, which again will remain with your project. And then you have your wash away, which is going to wash away. So that's the order of like expensiveness as well. So you've got tearaway, then cutaway, and then wash away. Wash away is the most expensive.
The most expensive.
Lisa likes to do lots of lace and using the sticky for
if it has
work.
fabrics.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of. I feel like this thing is like sticky.
I
to
know,
me, right?
Our sunburns are just like, hello. Did
Yeah.
you forget about me? I must remind you.
Yes. So she does a lot of things with like cutaway, and
I like
and that
to do
works.
cut work.
Cut
Yes.
work. That's
So
the word I'm looking for.
The cut work, you know, is basically lace interworked into a fabric. So, you know, napkins. I even like to do some clothing, though I'm very picky about where I put my cut work when it comes to clothing. I don't like the too much of a risk.
Do you need
can
another
have
one?
But yeah, it's very, very nice because you get that stability, and it is very, very easy to line things up. So OESD, we have their stabilizers here. They have such an easy way of doing their cut works because they literally give you like a V or an L or a corner placement, and you smack your napkin in there, lined up, and then
Wham bam.
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and it's perfect. And it's so easy to make everything look exactly like it's supposed to.
Yep.
And that sticky, you don't have any concern that it's not going to be right. It's just, it always comes out absolutely perfect, which is a joy because, you know, we don't have that a lot.
Yeah.
So we do have a few questions.
Yep. All right. So we have, would Teflon needles work better with sticky stabilizer?
So there are some.
We have kind of a love-hate relationship.
We do have
with
a
this.
love-hate relationship with Teflon needles. So if you are talking about an anti-glue, so anti-glue is what
Class A.
Class A calls their Teflon. Theirs are literally called anti-glue, and Schmetz are called Teflon. I've had pretty decent luck with the anti-glue needles from Class A. I like them. They work okay. Honestly, I have absolutely no problem with just wiping mine down with alcohol and just a standard needle. So personally, that's what I do. I don't put in a special needle when I'm using stickies. I just wipe them down when I have an issue. But if I'm going to use something, I would use an anti-glue. The Teflon from Schmetz, I hate to knock. I don't like to go crazy.
Yeah.
However, we have had a lot of issues with. We used them in a class once, and the coating, they only work for so long. While they were working, they worked great.
Fantastic.
but they hit like a stitch point, and then they literally started to
like the coating started
to come off
and leave marks,
leave this coating all over the project. So it was like white thread had this black edge to it, and I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
So for me, that was in not okay.
Yeah.
So for me, that made me never want to pick up that needle again. So I don't use those personally. But yes, if you're going to use them, I would use the anti-glue from Class A. But for me personally, I would just keep some alcohol wipes or a thing of alcohol with tissue or whatever by your machine and be ready to do that.
Yeah. And Cindy mentioned that OESD uses this particular project in a lot of their, they use them in their freestanding applique projects, not to be confused with their freestanding lace projects. So if it's completely lace, you wouldn't use
sticky.
But they do use this a lot for their applique stuff. Part of the reason that they do that is because it remains with your project, which does give you a little bit more like oomph to the project, so it stands up, like on the haunted mansions and things. They're taking their freestanding projects to new heights, literally.
They are.
And this really does help it continue to stand up. So she is definitely right there. And Pam asked, if a magnetic hoop is being used, do you need sticky stabilizer?
So they're not really exclusive one to the other. So it really is more about what the project is than what the hoop is.
Yeah.
So the magnetic hoop makes things easier to hoop. So you could probably hoop some things easier in a magnetic hoop and maybe not have to use a sticky. So you could get away or hoop some things a little bit easier in a magnetic hoop. However, if I'm going to use a sticky, I'm using it in a magnetic hoop too. So they have all kinds of fun things.
Yeah.
So I have used sticky in both magnetic and standard hoops. But yes, it would be slightly easier to hoop something in a magnetic hoop because there's no hoop burn, which we'll talk about later. And there's less stress on, woo! We need to ring a bell. Where's the cowbell? They can't hear our bell. But it does make it a little bit easier to hoop in a magnetic. So depending upon what it is that you're doing, you would not need sticky necessarily.
Yeah.
But
and like just a precursor about sticky stabilizers. So there's really a lot of people who just stick them to the bottoms of their hoop, and there are a lot of people who hoop it and score it. I would just like to say, I would just like to reiterate back to the beginning, right? If you are going to stick it to the bottom of your hoop, take it off right away. The longer it stays on the bottom of your hoop.
Even when you take it off right away, you still have to clean that hoop.
Yeah.
Because it's sticky.
Yeah.
There's lots of gunk that sticks to that.
There is, and different brands of machines have different things on the bottoms of their hoop. Sometimes there are little pads there, so pay attention to the bottom of your hoop, because if you have something like that, it can really mess up the whole inner workings of the bottom of your hoop. Dime does make a special sticky hoop that is basically just metal on the bottom and doesn't have any pads, so you could definitely use that if you wanted to. So, all right, that is all we have about,
Yep, so yes, FSA is freestanding applique. So yep, you are right on the money. That's what we were talking about.
Yes.
So just as a reminder, all three of these are in the bag.
They are in the bag, yes. Okay, and now we have water-soluble stabilizers. This is a water-soluble stabilizer too. We won't have to spend much time on that one because we already did Badge Master.
That's it.
Is that it? Just 3?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
Heavy, regular, and sticky.
So, water-soluble stabilizer. I feel like I'm on.
Should we talk about this one? I don't think they know anything about this one. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
What's with the numbers? Well, Pam, those are how many kits,
bundles?
How many bundles we have. And so we prepared that many bundles, and that when they're gone, that's it. So there is a little something special in the bundles. They are, of course, already discounted. and they should be well over $300, and they are $224.95. Everything that we're talking about currently, we are literally pulling from one of the kits. So this is all inclusive in the bundle. Plus, there's a little something in there.
Yeah, we'll show
get
you
there.
the bonus.
We'll get there when we get to the through all of this.
that. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, water-soluble stabilizers. When do I use it? How do I get rid of it? What's the difference between sticky, rinse away, clear, and mesh?
Okay.
So many choices.
So many.
What's first? Okay.
This
Kimberbell
stuff.
Wash Away, also known as Aqua Mesh, Wet and Gone, Dissolve Away, Sew and Wash.
Because God forbid we all talk about it the same word, right? Let's put a different name on it just because we're a different company.
Everybody should just call it the same, right? It's Wash Away.
So Kimberbell's Wash Away, you get the full package in your bundle, and this is literally your standard wash away mesh.
Yes.
So this would be what you would use for your base layer of anything that is going to disappear. We have used this in some of our classes when we need to, like, I cut through something and I needed I just needed something to stitch on.
Yep.
But we didn't want to actually add anything heavier in. So you throw a little bit of wash away in there. You can tape it to the hole that you made.
Absolutely.
And then you have something to stitch on. So yes, Miss Cindy, shipping is included. We actually will ship for free any order over $150. And since this one's over $200, you have totally hit that free. So if you wanted anything else included in there, it would also ship for free.
Absolutely.
So yes, have fun shopping. So this is a mesh. You can see here I've got a freestanding lace stitched. I've got 2 layers, which is what we would recommend, and I have 1 mesh and I have 1 badge master. So the mesh is my base layer here, and you can use that as a base layer. You can use it as a standalone. And we'll talk a lot more about lace as we move through things as well. But what else does that say over there?
Oh, it does say, the thing that I noticed when I was going through the instructions of these things is that every single one of these manufacturers has a slightly different instruction on how to get rid of it. Some of them are cool water, some of them are warm water.
So I'm curious, what do you generally do?
I usually do hot water.
Me too.
I really do. I usually, and so you guys have all heard me talk about my husband before and his issues with how things go in there. Look, there's one more gone. So what I
ringing the bell, guys.
I usually put mine in like a bucket or a container, and I use hot water, and then I usually rinse it in there because I can't dump it in my sink because Dave will have a coronary for me putting it in the septic thing.
Jeff has no idea what I do.
So, and then I just usually, which ironically I just dump it outside anyway, so I'm not really sure what but anyways, so that's what I usually do. The really neat thing about that water is if you've rinsed it too much, you can
actually sit it in there.
You can set it back in there.
And
it kind of sucks it up again.
Yep.
So yeah, sometimes you didn't mean to actually rinse it as much as you want.
Who knew your project sucked up to you as well?
I know, right? That's how you know it's a good project.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
Must want something from me.
So basically, it's kind of like the starch, if you will. So if you ever over rinse something, starching will give it a little extra something to make it a little stiffer.
Yeah, and I usually like trim around like the bulk of that off, and I kind of set it to the side. And so again, if you've rinsed it too much, you can dump your scraps in your water
and give it a little extra.
And then it gets a little starchier.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
that is your wash away. It certainly can be used on its own. It can be used as an add-on with its little buddy over here.
Yep.
It can be used as a, oh crap, I cut a hole in my stabilizer. It can be used in lots of ways, but it's wonderful to have in your stash.
Yeah, and in a pinch, like if you are quilting something and you can't quite get your quilt in the hoop, You can hoop your mesh stabilizer here and then put your project on top of it. Don't use the sticky for this.
Right.
But then like baste it, and then you can do your in the hoop quilting. And this really will rinse well.
Cleanly away.
Yeah, and it
the
will.
The sticky just leaves a lot of stick.
It does. It's really hard to stick out.
I wouldn't recommend the stick.
It's really hard to stick out. It's really hard to rinse out.
Yeah, stick out. Stick out, guys. Absolutely. Words are so difficult.
They are.
They really are. So
I blame the pollen outside.
Sounds like a plan. I like it. But yeah, this is really, really great. Everybody's works pretty close to the same. So here's a little, well, how do I know what that is compared to some other thing?
Besides licking it?
Yeah, don't do that. So evidently Hayden's been licking it. He's like, too late.
That explains a lot.
I know. So don't do this and flick through that's not what you want. Whichever one sticks to it, that's going to be that one. But now I got to dry it off. Hang on. So if you look really closely, there are tiny little dots in your water soluble. So the little dots is a water soluble thing. If you are looking at a mesh, which looks almost just like it, there is a grid. So grid is mesh, dots are water. So if you think of the dots as water droplets, maybe that will help.
Except for when it's heat away.
Yeah. Those aren't dots. Those are bumps.
Bumps? Okay.
Those are bumps. And you know when you get a rash, it like burns?
Yeah.
See, that's hot.
That's hot, okay.
See how you like that?
All right.
I just made that up, so don't mind me. Okay, so that's where my brain, I see those little things. I'm like, oh, water drops. Okay, great. That's water soluble. But if you have Polypro, that'll mess everybody up.
Yeah, so we didn't include that in there.
There's no Polypro in this year's bundle because that stuff messes me up on a regular basis.
Which one is this?
I don't. Yeah. Anyway, what's next? This stuff is awesome.
Yes. I don't know how you lived all those years without Badge Master. I kind of feel bad for you.
I didn't know about Badge Master, and for someone who loves lace, this was life-changing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely life-changing.
The funny thing about Badge Master is it smells a lot like Elmer's glue.
She's not wrong.
So it does have like a weird little gluey scent. But it's super thick. So it was originally created for patches, so that's where they got the name Badge Master, and then we all kind of glommed onto it using a lot of the different freestanding lace options. OESD is huge with their
freestanding lace.
Yeah, and they have like a whole a village of freestanding lace stuff.
Takes a village.
It takes a village, yes. So adding this in on top of that, it makes it a little thicker, like a little crunchier.
So even though this looks like it's not, everything is lined up absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
Perfect.
Yes.
And this feels like really heavy saran wrap. So this is that, it's really heavy clear. You cannot mistake this for a topper, though you could use it as a topper. I suppose technically it would not rinse away very easily like the topper does.
But it does peel away pretty easy.
But it doesn't tear like that.
It kind of does.
It does a little bit, but not like super easy like the toppers do.
You gotta work a little harder.
You got to work a little bit harder. But Badge Master, again, you can use it alone. It works really well with its buddy next door to it. And whether you use it on the top or underneath is going to depend upon whether you're using fabric or not.
Yeah, if you are using fabric like an applique, so we talked a little bit about the OESD stuff. If you're using that on top, put your Badge Master on the bottom because the applique pieces, they slide. It's like a slip and slide up there.
Yep.
When you go to stick them on.
This is very, very slippery.
It is, yeah. So if you're going to do something that you are adding fabric or appliques to, put your Badge Master on the bottom and put whatever version of wash away, the mesh type on top, and you will get a much better result. Otherwise, I typically put the Badge Master on top and the mesh on the bottom. And the reason that I started combining them, like if you've ever done a design on one or the other, they have they kind of break apart differently. The mesh sort of it kind of shears on the edge, and then the Badge Master can kind of poke through. But combining the two, you don't really get any of that. They sort of support each other. Mm-hmm. They're like a nice marriage.
This is what happens.
Yeah, when lace goes wrong.
When lace goes wrong. It's so sad because everything was looking so good until that final stitch. And this little guy right here, and it actually didn't look that bad in the hoop. I'm not sure how well that's showing up. Can you guys see? Okay. So right there on that edge.
Oh, there you go.
And when I rinsed it, I think I might have actually cried.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I mean, this was hours of stitching. Hours and hours of stitching. And then when I rinsed it, that hadn't connected. So what happens when you stitch lace with that many stitches is it will pull if you don't have enough stabilizer in there. And I didn't know about this at the time.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of layers of the mesh in there. So it wasn't like I had, you know, in my brain under stabilized or anything. But yeah, that was a very sad moment. It was a very sad moment. So don't let this happen to you.
Yes.
This is your brain on drugs. No, I'm kidding. Okay, but you really want
from sniffing that Elmer's glue.
From sniffing the glue, exactly right. So make sure that when you are doing lace, there's nothing worse than going to rinse it and having it literally crumble in your hands. It's just an absolutely heartbreaking feeling.
So
it is such a sad feeling. So I don't want that to happen to you. So we are giving you guys all of the tools so that it all works fantastic.
That's
and
right.
then
and we already talked about this.
This didn't change since the last 15 minutes.
Nope. But and you're not getting 2 rolls, but because
you're not,
we were talking about
this is still a water soluble. So
yes.
Again, if you're using applique types, you could sub that in into that.
Absolutely. All right. So we have so Pam says goof off is wonderful for taking the sticky off the stuff on both the needles and the hoops. Yes.
You know what does? Totally awesome.
Totally awesome. Yeah.
Totally awesome works really well.
So does really, really, really cheap men's aftershave. I mean, shaving cream. Yeah, it's got a lot of that alcohol in it. So
yeah. Well, you know, in my sewing room, I have Totally Awesome to clean my mats for my scan and cut, and I was like, Oh,
yeah.
Look at that.
It does work really well.
It worked really, really well.
It'll also take the lines off your mat, so be careful.
Good point.
Yeah, my
I remember you saying
mat,
that. Yeah,
I got a corner that's
Lineless.
a little light on lines.
Little Linus?
Yeah. It's Linus.
From the Peanuts game?
Yeah. I almost bought Peanuts Band-Aids yesterday, too. I got Scooby-Doo ones instead.
She bought me Wonder Woman Band-Aids. I was so happy.
You noticed them right away, too. That was cute.
I did. I saw them from all the way across the room. I was like, oh, look.
It's the little things. Oh.
It was wonderful.
Charlotte asked, does sticky stabilizer have a shelf life? Yes.
Yeah.
Part of it's really going to depend on how you
it's stored.
You know, the place that you have, my stabilizer is downstairs, and it does stay pretty cool down there most of the time.
Yeah, if it's going to be really hot and dry, it's going to, I mean, it can dry out so that the adhesive just dries out and doesn't stick. The wonderful thing is you will know if it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to be working on your project and it's going to just stop working in the middle of it. When you go to put something on it and you go to peel it, you'll know right away.
Yeah.
So at least from that perspective, it's not like it's going to stop working mid-project or anything like that.
Right. And you also want to pay attention a little bit to your water solubles, because they can also have different things happen with humidity and things like that. So you do want to pay attention to that a little bit. You okay?
I didn't bring my phone.
Oh.
The Stitch and Stay. I don't.
I have Floriani's Stitch and Stay. If you don't cover this at the end, can you explain what this is for? I
I'd have to look it up. That one's a new one.
Yeah.
It's not in their original repertoire, so I was going to look it up. But
Okay.
I don't have my phone, so.
We might be able to handle that. Maybe Hayden can Google that for us.
I can handle that.
All right. So you may have a shelf life with your stabilizers. Water solubles and sticky can be affected by your climate.
Yes. So things like the plasticky type things can dry up.
Mm-hmm. They
can
brittle.
get brittle.
Mm-hmm.
So Ziploc bags, and just keeping them from the air.
Yeah.
If you're going to leave them for a long time.
There's another one.
Ding! Thank you. So,
okay, so next.
that's the wrong ding. No,
That's the wrong ding, yes. Okay.
Now
we have
little bits of things. You can do a couple things to make those
yes. No.
last.
Steph says, can they be revived if they're brittle? No. You can.
Unfortunately.
No, because they really just, you might still be able to use them for a little while, but they basically lose their integrity. So no, they cannot be revived.
If they're like stiff, don't even attempt it. If they're still bendable, you're probably still okay to use it. But if they're literally like straight, don't even attempt it.
Yep.
Where are we at?
Oh, we are
Cutaway.
on cutaways. So when do I use it? How do I get rid of it? What's the difference between sticky, standard, and mesh? All right, I think that's it.
Fusible, non-fusible, sticky.
Yep. All right. So.
And this is working pretty good.
Yeah. Leabu Fusible No-Show Mesh. So this one is our brand. So otherwise, Floriani has rebranded.
They have.
Their new stuff is called Power Mesh. So it was previously, I think, just Fusible No-Show Mesh.
Yep.
But it's now Power Mesh Fusible because that's not confusing at all. And Baby Locks is just called No-Show Fusible Mesh, which is really what ours is called with the words mixed around.
Yep. Because, you know.
Yes. And then we have the OESD Fusible Poly Mesh. I will tell you, I would use all of these but the OESD one.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's a good product, right? But the OESD one, and we have a little bit of a sample to show you a little bit later. That one is a little bit more likely to give you some shrinkage or ruffle your feathers a little bit. So I actually use the Leabu version a lot, and the Kimberbell one is really nice as well. Theirs is
this is non-fusible.
Yes, they don't make
Kimberbell does not make a fusible.
Yes, so they make a really nice mesh in two styles.
Two different weights, but not in fusible. They don't have a fusible.
Yes, so those are our options.
Yep.
We use fusible a lot because it's important that it's stuck to your fabric.
Absolutely. So if you guys know me, you know that when I'm not doing samples for the store, a very go-to thing for me to do is to embellish clothing. So if I am doing that, Fusible No-Show is absolutely what I am going to be using. So this is, I have a huge roll. I buy the industrial roll of this. I call up our rep and I go, hey, I'm out. I need another big roll. And so I get a big, massive roll because I use so much of it. So one thing that I absolutely love, though, is the new roll that they have done. So I don't know if you guys remember the plastic tube thing.
Yeah, it was
which
cool.
we thought was going to be nice.
For a minute.
Except that they cracked and broke really, really fast. But this has this little label, so when it's sitting on your shelf, you know what it's going to be, which is wonderful. And look, it's on the other end too, so it doesn't matter which end you put
see
that
it on
on.
our shelf over here.
I know, it's really, really great. And so it's a really nicely packaged. And hey, it's got Leabu on it, so
it must be good.
That's even better, right? So that is absolutely my go-to. I do have the non-fusible version of this. That's what I use at home, but I certainly have used a lot of the Kimberbell for classes and things like that. And there's I've never been unhappy with. So
No.
I would buy that in a heartbeat. I haven't used the OESD, but you have.
I have.
And I have not tried it based on your.
I love OESD products, but you know, I always tell people there are a reason why there are lots and lots and lots of different brands out there. And one of the reasons why Lisa and I like to do our stabilizer event here is because we
are
like
not
to tell
brand
you,
specific.
right? We like to tell you which ones are our favorite and the reasons that they're our favorite. So even though you can pick from 7, this is the reason that we pick this one.
This is why we use this one.
Yeah.
So the consistent and even fuse is a very important thing. So when you are doing clothing, if you have spots that didn't fuse, you're not going to get a good stitch because that area is still going to stretch, because there's very few clothing items that don't stretch. Otherwise, they look really stupid on us, right? Because they would just be like a sheet, and so it wouldn't work, right? So they stretch to move around with us. So that fuse keeps it from shifting while we're stitching. So if that fuse is not consistent, neither is your stitch.
Yep.
So having a good fuse is very important. So the baby lock I have had very good success with, which we carried for quite some time. The Floriani for a long time prior to that, and the Leabu. All 3 of those I have used and been very, very happy with. The Leabu is what we chose to put in the bundle because it is because it's Leabu.
Because it's Leabu.
And actually, it was the new packaging. We wanted to make sure you guys saw the new packaging because it's just so cool.
Absolutely.
So that was one of those reasons there. So as far as what type of clothing, absolutely, it's what I would put on a baby onesie. I would put that on pretty much anything. It would just be, of course, a smaller size piece of stabilizer, so smaller hoops and things like that. So they have, there is that really tiny hoop. So depending upon what it is that you're stitching, there is like a 1.5 by 2 inch hoop. So if you only have a really small design that you're doing a lot of, then that hoop is worth it. If you're only going to do that once, then it's not worth it. But there is a very, very small hoop that you have access to if you plan to do a lot of those, which makes it easier to hoop because baby onesies are really, really tiny.
They are.
So, yay! Yay! There's another one. Thank you. So, did you like my coloring?
I do. You did a fantastic job. So yes, all of those things that Lisa talked about are super important.
The only cutaway that we didn't put in here was the real heavy one.
Yes.
And it's not because we don't like it. It's because we don't use it as often.
Right.
And because you could sub in these for that in almost any instance.
Yep.
So,
we'll answer those questions in a minute.
Yeah,
we're not ignoring any of you guys.
No, I was just trying to read it to see if I could put my, but nope, I don't think so. So the heavier white, it's like solid white stabilizer is the medium cutaway. So it would be this without the sticky, basically, is what that would be. That is the only one that we didn't include in the bundle. I mean, like I said, it's basically a heavier version, not mesh, of this.
Right.
Which is the only reason that we didn't include it. And you can use that in wall hangings, bags, all those kinds of things. You can also use this. So that is why we
gave you the sticky version.
We gave you the sticky version of that, and figured if you didn't want sticky, you could sub in this instead. So
absolutely,
that was kind of the thought process behind that. And we had to cut the line somewhere.
Yes.
We put a lot of stuff in the bag, so we had to cut it somewhere. But, when you are choosing those stabilizers, what is I always say, what is the end game? What do you want to end up with? Do you want it to be a bag that you can fold up and shove in something that's going to conform to whatever you have in it? Or do you want it to basically stand up on its own and have, a formed shape?
Yep.
Because those are very, very different things that you're going to want to build that bag into.
Right.
When it comes to clothing, almost nobody says, I want that shirt to stand up on its own.
I mean, no.
So there's there's usually one answer to that question, and this is that answer. So
Yep.
I will never recommend that you do not fuse when you are doing clothing. Ever recommend, you should always be fusing.
Yep.
So it's definitely going to be highly recommended
much
that you fuse.
better. Yeah.
And depending upon how many stitches, you might need to add a friend as a float. So depending upon what you're doing there. So we'll talk about that once we get through all of this stuff too.
Absolutely.
So-
And next we have the Kimberbell Light Mesh Cutaway.
Yep.
So Kimberbell also makes a lighter weight. They call it ultra light.
Ultralight.
And this is no-show mesh, Floriani's power mesh, Baby Lack's no-show mesh, OESD's poly mesh, and then the other ultralight cutaway for Kimberbell. So this is what you use when you don't need it to be fused, but you still want to have something lightweight.
Yep.
Works great for quilts and all kinds of different types of projects.
Yep.
Where you want your stabilizer. Like, I don't typically cut this away, especially if it's in a quilt. I would just leave this in. It's
Right.
light enough that it provides support for my design, but it doesn't require.
Doesn't add so much weight to the whole thing.
No, I don't feel like I have to trim it out of the seam allowance.
And if you do trim it, then you start seeing weirdness,
yeah,
right?
outlines and things
Where
like
if it's
that.
everywhere, it's consistent,
Yep.
right? So that is what you're going, if you're doing quilt squares in the hoop,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be your base stabilizer that you are using to build that quilt square on.
Yep. And the reason that you don't want to add, you don't want to use, well, Fusible is more expensive, but because we normally recommend that you fuse something to your background fabrics before you stabilize and
Yep.
do your projects on it, you don't want to double fuse with two different types of Fusible. So this works perfect. I think the only disadvantage of this is that if you are using a traditional hoop, sometimes it's really hard to get your hoop tight enough if it's just the stabilizer, and you don't have the fabric going all the way through it. I would think that that is really the only disadvantage to this one, is it's easy to pop your hoop out if you don't have enough in the edges of your hoop.
I haven't had that too much, to be honest, and I certainly have done my fair share of quilt squares in the hoop with just that in there. But I can certainly see where that, can happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the one
Just
you really have to
keep your
tighten
eye out for
the
it. Make sure that
screw.
you're tightening the screw. Don't leave it loose, because nobody wants that to happen.
Nope.
That's so frustrating.
No fun at all.
No fun at all. So that is non-fusible and fusible.
Yep.
And there are certainly a very long laundry list of what you would use both of those project type things.
Yeah, and then we already talked about the Stabilistic Cutaway. So, let's
go
answer
through
some questions. All right, so we have this one, Charlotte. How do I access the bundle or the store? I did put the link scrolling down at the bottom if you haven't already found it. If you received any of our emails today, there is links in the emails that will get you right to where
there.
you need it. But essentially, it is lebu-sewing-center.myshopify.com. That will get you to our website and where all of the stuff is. Woo! I think there's another one.
I'm guessing that's another one.
Woohoo! Okay. So the next question was, is this wrong? Well, I'm not sure what I just did. Oh, I turned my clicker off. I'm like, what happened? There we go. I am not sure.
Wrong mouse.
Yeah, totally. What this is, this heat stable can iron it. Steph, I'm not sure which product you were talking about when you asked that question. If you could clarify that for us, we will be happy to answer that for you. I felt like we were on the washaways when you were asking that question.
Yeah, she had asked about if it was brittle, so we were talking about that.
But the washaways are not.
They are not something that you
heatable.
would want to iron.
Is the poly mesh products all heat stable? Yes, they are. You can iron on all of them, and we'll talk about how to appropriately iron them in just a little while. You do have to be careful and pay attention to your heat though,
Yep.
because different poly meshes, some of them are nylon, some of them are poly. They're made of different things, and they can get overheated.
Yep.
So you do want to just pay attention a little bit to that. And Cindy asked, would you use the Leabu Fusible
Where do you
no-show
work?
mesh? I don't know.
So yes, that is exactly what I would use. So
Yeah, works great.
Yep. And just for everyone's reference, once you have completed your stitch, you can reheat that fusible and peel it back to remove that. So when you're picturing in your head this massive piece of stabilizer,
Yep.
You don't, of course, leave all of that in there. You would remove the excess. So you just have it behind your actual stitch out.
Yep. And Lynn says, do you have a binder that can be purchased that details stabilizer?
That's a great idea.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe soon. Thanks for that idea. And do you have these notes in that bag?
There is some information in the bag, not this detailed. Of course, this recording is going to be available on Facebook and YouTube that you can reference back whenever you would like to. But there is some stuff in the bag.
Yep.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
And do you use light mesh for quilting blocks prior to embroidery? Yep, it's great product for that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
You're nodding. We answered that, and she was asking because she has had some melt or bubble, and that we are going to talk about that.
Probably too high of a heat. Is a lot of them will say, a medium heat, and we tend to crank our heats all the way up when we turn our high irons on. We like to turn those all the way to the hottest setting. It's just our habit. All the way to cotton, all the way to all the way to the top. So if you get in the habit of doing a medium heat and then only turning it up when you need to instead of having that all the way on high, you'll probably have better luck. I'm guilty of it too. So I mean, it's just our natural thing. We turn it all the way up.
Absolutely.
So, but they do generally tell you for a medium heat is what they're recommending.
Yep.
So.
Oh, and one last one here before we start. What is the coupon used for? So the coupon can be used on individual rolls of stabilizer. If you register before the end of this episode here, we will give you, we'll send you out a special coupon code that can be used off 30% off of stabilizers. So just individual rolls. You will not get an additional discount on our bundle.
Right. The bundle is already discounted. I'm not sure if we have any other stabilizer bundles on the site. I honestly don't know the answer to that, but it would only be on individual rolls of stabilizer, but it's 30% off basically all stabilizers that are on there. So.
All right, so let's talk about tearaway stabilizer.
Tearaway's next. All right.
I love a lot of words there. When do I use it? How do I get rid of it? What's the difference between sticky, lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight, soft, and firm?
Ow!
Ooh, how many types do I need? What did you do?
That fell off.
Oh, did it get your toes?
It did.
I'm so sorry.
My sunburned toes to boot. There it is. I'm like, now I'm afraid.
All right.
Woo.
Woo. It's dangerous over there.
Evidently.
Okay, and then my favorite question is, Hayden, sugar and spice.
And everything nice. That's what Hayden is
Do you want to
made
come model?
No, I'll bring it to Lisa though. Model.
Oh, thank you. So we have these new panels that I'm like, what did I just hit? And it's our numbers that are on the, so we got these new panels that make this adorable apron. Ta-da!
Look, it matches your sunburn.
It does. Bright red. It's just like me. So we've
Look at
got
you even got
pockets.
Did it just happen that way? Or did you do
no.
that on purpose?
Lined it up.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
Pockets and straps, everything that is needed is all on the panel.
No stabilizer required for that.
But the backing.
I added a yard of backing fabric.
He added the lining that's on the back.
Yeah.
But isn't
So
that adorable?
cute. Yes.
So yes, he was over there modeling it. We had to pick it. It was very cute. Hence the giggles.
Yes.
Hence the giggles.
All right. So back to your regularly scheduled program. Here.
That was the
Let's
commercial
talk
break.
About tearaway stabilizers. So there is a lot of different versions of tearaway stabilizers. You've got sticky, lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight, soft, firm, all kinds of different varieties.
Medium weight and 1.5, 2.0,
Oh
2.5.
my gosh, so many, right?
It's just like, holy crow.
I use two kinds of tearaway. I use sticky and heavyweight. That's it. Those are the only two I think you need in your arsenal. What do you use?
Sticky and heavy are my main, but I do still have some medium in there. But I tend to use 2 layers of it if that's what I've got. It's in the if that's what I'm using.
Yeah.
One piece isn't generally
Usually
what
enough.
I'm using. What I've got in there, but it does get used because it's there. So, but this is the gist, right? What we have here.
Yep.
So let's talk about these. You guys don't know anything about this roll yet, right? Should we talk about that?
We should.
Oh, maybe we should just move on. You guys have heard about that roll already.
Yeah,
That
is
is just
our,
my smart alecky brain going.
Yeah, stable stick tearaway.
So tearaway sticky is a wonderful thing. If you already have something fused for stability, you can use that as your tearaway, which is wonderful. So those hard to hoop items that you still need that fused cutaway on.
Yep.
You can fuse the cutaway to whatever that item is and then stick it to this. Boom, you're ready to go.
Absolutely.
Such a great thing. Wonderful, wonderful stabilizer.
And then we have our Leabu heavyweight tearaway.
And can we just say that all heavyweight tearaways are not
I even wrote that.
created equal?
Not all heavyweight tearaways are created equal.
Look at that. We think the same thing. Anyway, even if they say they are,
Yes.
they are not. So even if they all say, they both could be 3.0, that doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be feeling that same oomph.
Yeah, ours are this is kind of like cardstock. I mean, it's really stiff.
It is really stiff, and it is difficult. This is difficult to hoop.
It is.
You can get it in the hoop, but it's difficult.
It is.
The first time when we got this, and it was before Kimberbell started doing the quilting, like the pre-quilting.
Yes.
I can speak if I try really, really, really hard. So it was do the crosshair and center it and yada yada. So I was hooping this and then
Oh yeah.
putting
Your project on
Project
top.
on top.
That's tough.
and
This one can
I mean,
pop out of your hoop
it
pretty easily.
worked, but it was like, oh, I was getting my workout in trying to hoop my just the stabilizer because
Yeah.
it is so thick. It is very, very heavy, and it does a miraculous job. And when you stitch through that, it's perforating it. I mean, you don't really need to tear it away. It's really doing it all by
It
itself.
comes away really.
It really does. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool, but it really does support those stitches so very well. Part of it, I mean, there's more to it than just that, though.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yes, it's wonderful, but that's not the only thing that you should be using.
So there are, when I say I only have 2 stabilizers, and I actually have 3 stabilizers in my tearaway arsenal. I do have sticky stabilizer, and I have the OESD version and our version. The OESD version of heavyweight tearaway is a little lighter weight. It's still really stiff, but it's easier to hoop in a regular hoop. You all know that I don't use my regular hoop very often. I use my magnetic hoop. So I do use the heavyweight tearaway a lot. And that is my go-to
Right.
for, my projects are typically wordy.
She stitches words a lot.
Yeah, I'm totally into like fonts and words and stitching them out. And words are really hard. They're hard to come by and speak, but they're also hard to stitch out sometimes. They really tend to pull in a lot. So this makes things last. It stay nice and flat, and it does. I don't get that tunneling with them, so there's that a lot. Pam asked, is heavyweight best in a magnetic hoop for tiling scenes? You do still need to layer. So a tiling scene is going to be best if layered with a variety of stabilizers to give you a very flat piece. But if you want to hoop your tearaway, using a magnetic hoop is a lot easier to get it in.
Right.
If you want to hoop it, you might, if you have trouble with our stabilizer, you might try the OESD.
Sorry.
That's okay, because it is a little thinner and it is a little easier to get inside the hoop. This one does work really great as a floater at the bottom.
Right.
We use it as a floater a lot, so you're not actually putting it in your hoop. You're really just
sliding
it underneath the hoop. And you can use your basting frame if you want to make sure that everything stays together, but not necessarily.
But you know, once it
starts
grabbed
stitching.
hold of it, once you've started stitching with that on there, it will move. It keeps its shape.
It does. It does
just
not
stays right
pull
where you want
in
it
at
to
all.
go. So it stays right in position. So
Yep. Do you have anything else to add about tearaway?
no, just you know, I don't really use just this without anything else very often.
No.
In general, I'm not using any tearaway by itself.
Yeah, there's usually
I do
something
sometimes
else.
this without anything else.
Right.
But not that. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Because it really doesn't stay with your project.
No.
So
and I generally want something else going on in there, whether it's just a fusible backing or something, but there's something else going on to protect and support.
And the whole reason to add a tearaway stabilizer is to provide stability, which is why I really don't see much point in something that doesn't actually provide stability. Like a lot of tearaways
Are so thin.
They're soft and they're thin and they're really not supporting much.
No.
And the softer they are, the fuzzier they are to remove.
Right. And for me, if it doesn't tear clean, I don't
Want to bother with
I don't
it?
like it
Yeah.
personally. Personally, I want a tearaway to be a very clean tear.
Yeah.
I don't like the fuzz
No.
edge thing.
So yeah, you've got this one in your bag. You're gonna like it.
You're gonna love it. It's fantastic. All right, so we already talked about the sticky tearaway.
Yep.
So let's talk about the other stuff.
Yes, we've got some
So-
specialty stuff.
Do I have any over here? Nope. Do you want this?
Yep.
Cheeso Pete's.
All right. So what's the difference between stabilizers, interfacing, and fusible webs? There's no easy T in this one.
There's not. I was just looking at that going, oh dear, did she not put that in these?
Can you grab us an easy T?
That would be a problem.
Yes, it would. I wonder if this is the one bag. Of course, you didn't grab it from a special spot, did you?
I did not.
It's not at the bottom, is it?
It is not.
Thank you. All right. So, Easy T is a woven interfacing. And this is by far my favorite fusible to put on the back of my projects before I stitch them out. This is also known by many other names. Kimberbell calls theirs fusible backing. Floriani, Baby Lock, and Leabu, we do not have one that is a woven interfacing. OESD has fusible woven. Floriani has Dreamweave, but it isn't. It's an interfacing, and it's similar to this, but it isn't
Not exactly
100%,
the same.
and it's not 100% cotton. So it's a little bit different.
Here's the favorite part.
Yes. It is pre-shrunk. That's the part you might not be able to see on the screen over there. There we go. It is pre-shrunk. There is not another one of these projects out there that is 100% cotton woven interfacing that is pre-shrunk. And ask me how I know, because I have tried them all.
Yep. And she didn't like anything else.
I don't. I keep going back to this one over and over and over again. It fuses the cleanest on the back. There are no bubbles. If I could find a number that is better than infinite, she asked me, is it better than SF101? It is, what is the largest number you can come up with? Like, I don't know, infinitely better. It is a million, hundred, quadruple times.
So
whatever.
we get asked that on a regular basis. So, you know, and we hear on a regular basis, well, I get SF101 over at Joann's or wherever your local closest hobby type place is. And unfortunately, you know, that is not the quality that this is. It is not the same thing. It represents as the same thing.
Same category.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And so when you buy the bundle, you're going to get this in there and you're going to use it and you're going to go, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
It is night and day difference because it fuses beautifully. There's no stretch, there's no give, there's no bubbles. It's just an absolutely beautiful thing to work with. And if you happen to be one of the Kimberbell people that we have, you know, you're being asked to put this stuff on the back of all of your background fabrics for all of these quilts and pillows and all of this stuff. So we're using it all the time. And once you start using it on one type of project, then you go to look at another project, and even when it doesn't tell you to do it, then you start doing it there because your stuff came out so much better. So we start using it for everything else too. So we use this lots and lots and lots. So it really is very good stuff. And it definitely is a very large difference. Unfortunately, it is not available on a bolt.
No.
It's available in 2 different sizes. So this one here we have in front of us is the 60 by 72. It's also available in 14 by, I don't remember.
60 feet, I feel like.
I don't remember.
It's it's an equivalent version of this.
It is the same size, it's just a different shape.
Yeah, it's a different.
And it's the same price.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of which size frame. I personally, because I'm generally doing more just for the hoops than large projects, I like the 14-inch one because it works better for me and I can manage it.
Yep.
I think you generally like this size better.
Yeah. And really, it just depends on the size hoop that I would say the size pieces that you're typically cutting.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I cut a lot of pieces that are like 10 inches, which is why
4-inch.
The only thing that I had at home this weekend when I was playing,
4-inch pieces?
I had 4-inch little pieces, like 4x6, a ton of, and I was like, well, I could piecemeal this together, but.
That's not really going to help.
No, but I was just laughing. I was like, well, obviously I know what size I used when I had these. So I typically like the bigger version just because it's easier to cut strips off for me. This tells you to put this on for like 10 or 15 seconds or so. Press and hold iron with firm pressure for 10 to 12 seconds. Again, it's a pressing thing, not an ironing thing. You want to do that. But I will tell you, the glue is perfect. It's even. It doesn't bubble. It doesn't wrinkle. It is so much nicer. I've used SF 101 for many, many moons and was super ecstatic when I found out about this particular product. And then they went and made it better, and they made it
Pre-shrunk it.
Pre-shrunk. So this is by the Heat and Bond company. So they make a lot of fusibles. So that they're kind of known for their fusibles, but great product. I cannot recommend it enough. It is in your arsenal of stuff.
And this is available in black as well.
Yes. If you want something that is a little bit
not in your
darker.
kit, unfortunately. We did put the black, not in the only. Let's try that again.
We just put white.
White is the only color available in the kit, but it is available to purchase separately as black.
Cindy asked, do you use steam with it? So here's my thing. I don't use steam. I will introduce water and heat. I will spritz things with water, and then I will press it with my iron, but I actually don't use water in my iron. It makes it die quicker, so I just don't do it that way. But yes, if I introduce water to this or best press or anything, it is pre-shrunk, so it does not react to the water, which is great. So like I said, I cannot recommend this enough. And then moving right along, we have Quilter's Dream Blend. So otherwise known as Kimberbell Project Batting or Floriani Embroidery Batting.
So they're blends.
Yes.
And the Kimberbell and the other two are both a natural color versus this one that happens to be white. But they're the same base thickness kind of thing. This is just a wonderful size, and you can get a lot out of one of these little guys. And we're constantly needing batting for a lot of these projects. They just need a little. It could be a zippered bag project. You still need batting. We always need just that little extra something that's doing the random little pieces of things. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a pillow or a quilt. It just needs to have a little padding.
Padding, yep.
But this is really great stuff. We do carry this. This happens to be the crib size that we included. But as you can see, there are multiple sizes available all the way up to king. So we do keep multiple sizes here. So it's just a matter of what you're looking for. If we don't have what you're looking for, we certainly can order it for you. So this is available as poly, it's available as cotton, or it's available as a blend.
Yep.
So wonderful quality, and
made in the USA.
Made in the USA is absolutely correct. So this is a really, really great thing. So.
And that is in your...
That is also in there. So this particular one, I'm sorry, Pam, this piece is 60 by 46.
She asked if EZT can be fused to starch fabric. I thought yes, absolutely.
Absolutely,
no issues. Again, the fusible on the back is perfect. It'll basically adhere to anything. So no issues there. We have OESD Fusion Seal. This is a clear fusible that is non-sewable. So this is designed for applying patches and things like that to your projects that you don't have to sew afterwards. You can just stick it on there and then stick it down. So it's nice and easy. Floriani has something called Press and Bond, which is similar, and we have Patch Attach, which is a similar product. Again, just great for adding, patches of any sort, or creating a patch on a jeans or
it was a very ugly sample, but for a long time we had this lamp in the shop, and but it was a great sample because it showed, it doesn't have to just be a patch that you could put on, a random thing. And there were these roses that had been attached by this to this lampshade. And it was it was cool, but it's just really ugly. But it was a neat, because it was something different. It wasn't just your average everyday thing. So something like this doesn't just have to be used for an actual patch. It can be put on all kinds of things. If you can iron it, you can put it on there, because that is how this, so it's a heat activated bond. So you do need to be able to iron because
Yep.
you do need to be able to heat it. So
Yeah.
that is an important aspect of it. But outside of that, it's pretty much an open game.
Yep.
Wonderful, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, and if you're into patches, it's even better.
Right, even
So,
better, absolutely.
Even better. So that is that wonderful fuse and seal, which is again in the bag.
And then I think last of the fusible stabilizer products and stuff that is in our arsenal is our Baby Lock Fusible applique. This works really well. It is, the information on this darn tag is incorrect.
Yes, don't
it is
read the
not
label.
water activated.
Please do not read the label.
It is heat activated. I believe it's correct on the inside of the label, but it is wrong on the outside for sure.
Don't remember.
But
It's been a long time since I've actually read the other side.
yes, this is considered a fusible webbing. So what you would do is you would fuse it to the wrong side of your fabric, and then the other side peels off, and then you can stick it to your project, and it is movable, so you can get it wherever it is that you want it. Once you have it in the final place, you can fuse it down.
to permanently adhere it.
Yep, it doesn't get super stiff. So if you're putting up multiple layers, it remains soft. It doesn't gum up your needle, which is really nice, so you can keep stitching through it. And I have actually tried putting a piece of this through my printer, and it does print in your printer. So they said that you could do that. So I cut a piece, and I was like, well, it did go. It didn't jam, so that was great. Bonus.
You didn't use a printer here.
I did not. I can
say all the printers here jams here, so that wouldn't have worked very well. I wouldn't recommend using a printer here.
Right.
But yeah, so it is. We have used many different pieces here. This works and responds basically just like every other one that we've used. So the applique wonder that we had here forever, it literally acts just like those, and all of the rest. This did go, everything went up in price over the last year, but so I mean it went up in price, but it's still a very, I think, reasonable price for the amount that you're getting. And it's just so easy. This is not one of those that you can overheat and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore, which we certainly have run into with some other brands that are not being sold here, but things that people have brought in from a scan and cut perspective of, well, I cut this and, it just shredded my fabric when I was cutting it. They separated and da-da-da-da. That won't happen with this because you can't overheat it to where it's going to no longer stick.
Absolutely.
So now time can make things happen differently, but it's a wonderful, wonderful product. So, and I know you've done quite a bit with standard applique. So machine applique, standard sewing applique, embroidery applique, scan and cut work. It's literally just an all-around wonderful product that you can use. So really great for all kinds of different technique.
Absolutely.
You can use it for, it's not on the camera, I don't think today, even the Laura Heine type thing that you just did. You can even use that in there. It's a little heavy.
It's
a little heavy for that,
Yeah.
but if you're not going to be doing a lot, you could even use that if that was all that you could find. You could even use it for something like that if you needed to.
We have a couple questions. Do you use Quilter's Dream to pre-quilt your Kimberbell blocks? Yep, it's great.
Absolutely.
You can use it in place of the Kimberbell batting or any other batting. The nice thing about it being the blend is it won't have a tremendous amount of shrinkage.
Right.
So that helps definitely for doing a project like that. Is this applique like soft infuse or is it heavy? It's not heavy, and I don't use soft infuse, so I believe soft infuse is a lot thinner than this.
I haven't used it either. I can't answer that one.
So this is thicker. I wouldn't say heavier, but it's definitely thicker. So it is going to be a little bit different. And Kathleen is asking about the stabilizer bands, which we're getting to in just a minute. So in just 1 minute.
If we can put that one on hold just for a second, Ms. Kathleen.
We will answer that.
And ask a question about...
She asked.
Oh,
that was
okay.
that.
Sorry.
Yep, we're good. Nope.
All right. So that is all of the pieces that are included from a stabilizer and miscellaneous perspective.
Yep.
So
the file was too big.
Oh, you had to split it?
Yep. There we go.
All right. So, couple little things that we just kind of want to throw out and bring up. So, you are in one of two groups.
Mm-hmm.
It's really there's not
There are only two groups of
not
stabilizers.
you're not in one or the other half the time. You're in one or the other. Period.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You're in the I do test sews,
Mhm.
or you're in the I wish I did a
test
test
sew.
sew. So that's literally it. So there is always going to be that company that you know, hey, that one, they know what they're doing. I don't have to worry about it. That's going to come out.
Right.
And, you know, whatnot. But
because you probably tested that before.
because you've tested them before, right? However, those are few and far between.
Mhm.
You know, there is very few things. And even, you know, when we've had those where we just we know this is going to be fine.
Mhm.
There's still problems that we come across every now and
It
then.
does happen.
So test sewing will find those issues, whether they be big, small,
Mhm.
holy crow, I need to fix that, or
Yeah.
whatever it be. Most definitely, if it's something that you're creating, don't whip out that leather jacket and put it on there without doing something, you know, those kinds of things.
No,
So,
I mean, almost all of the issues that people have with embroidery could have been solved had they done a test sew. And we're going to show you guys, so we're going to, just really quickly here, making sure that your fabric is pre-washed and pre-shrunk. We're going to show you why. If you're trying out new stabilizers, again, make sure you know how they're going to react when they're washed. Keeping your embroidery bobbins and your sewing bobbins separate. Starching your fabric. This helps prevent it from being stretched. We're going to show you that in just a minute. And resisting the urge to pull your fabric, we're going to show you that. So I'm going to make our camera down here bigger.
okay.
I'm going to take this. There we go. And
Switcheroo.
do that. There we go.
Ta-da!
Yay, I figured it out.
Okay, where you want to start?
So let's start right there.
Okay, so this is really cute.
Yeah.
This is just a knit.
Yep.
All right, there's nothing special about it. It's just a hank, and it is some uber stretchy fabric.
And I
right?
think this one is stretchy two ways too. So you have to be super careful.
This is going to be one of those things that whether you're sewing with it, whether you bought it and want to put something on it, whatever it is, that is going to be a huge flag of look at it before you go to put on it, sew with it, whatever, and say, okay, I need to prep this.
Yes.
And this is that beautiful stuff that we talked about.
So by adding this to the back of it, I no longer have the stretch, right? So I've got just a teeny tiny bit here, but not near as much as I had before. So this is using the
Easy
Tee on the back of it. And so it also is still going to be super soft, right?
Yep.
So by putting this on the back of the area where I'm going to perhaps do my embroidery, I can make sure that this is going to remain nice and soft. Now I could go ahead and put whatever stabilizer I need to on the back of this. This is going to make sure that this stays together.
And it's not going to shift underneath whatever it happens to be that I'm putting on, whether it's another big cactus or whatever it happens to be. So this is just a very quick, this literally took me 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I cut it, I fused it, and now I can stitch on it.
Yep.
And that changed that drastic stretch to I'm ready to stitch.
Yep.
All right.
And it's going to make all the difference in the world.
We need to be able to prepare what we're doing, and we have to look at it before we get it in the hoop, before we have done whatever. And there's no starch or anything on this. This was literally just that easy tea and how we can make something ready to go that quickly and easily.
Yeah, so again, what we did was we stabilized the knit so that it would not stretch and distort.
We removed the stretch from the area that we wanted to stitch.
Yes, and so we added the easy tee on the back of this, which could stay with our project because it's not
Because
going
it's still soft,
Yep.
and it's so the hand of the material hasn't changed. It's
No.
still soft and movable, and it's still going to move with who's ever wearing whatever it is, but it's now able to accept all those stitches.
Right, which is going to mean that you will have some different stabilizer choices. If you wanted to
Right.
put this in your hoop, you could use a sticky to get that in, which would make that
Right.
super easy. Or you could then put some no-show mesh underneath there and hoop it. And again, because we've
already fused it, we could use a non-fusible if you wanted to do that.
We could, and by using that that no-show mesh, we would make sure that we are not stretching our fabric out. So super important.
So there are a lot of people that will sub, you want
Yep.
Nope, you're fine.
Let me find the right mouse.
So there are a lot of people who will sub the fusible mesh, and I have certainly done it if I'm out. I think that the hand actually remains truer with the Easy Tee. Fusible mesh, it feels different.
It also washes different.
And it washes different. So that is not a pre-shrunk by any stretch. So you are going to have everything feel very, very different. And it's going to end up different with the fusible mesh than with the Easy Tee. The Easy Tee is pre-shrunk. And I think that if you had, a blind test, you would be able to feel the difference between the two as well. So I think that you're going to get a better result with a blind test of that feel, as well as just an actual result because of that pre-shrunk.
Yep. Now, maybe if I were putting that across the chest of my shirt, a bigger embroidery design, I still want that shirt to have some stretch later on. So maybe I wouldn't use this. I might use mesh, but then like on the sample that I have, I probably would take the time to make sure that I really trim in between my words.
Each letter. So
and-
that that
Yep.
you give areas that the shirt can shift.
Yes.
Especially when you have a chest, that becomes a little bit more important. I have a shirt over here on the wall that I actually made for myself, and it doesn't stretch because I put vinyl on it, and the vinyl doesn't stretch with the shirt, so it looks absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, oh, store sample. Okay. So it's now on the wall here at the store because I can't wear it because the shirt moves, but the vinyl doesn't, so it looks absolutely ridiculous when I try to wear that.
Yes.
So there's always going to be another way that you could do something. We're just trying to give you the best examples so that you can hopefully make a best choice when you go to sit that down.
Yep.
So
grab the, let's grab some of the shirts and put those up. You've got that pile, and then I've got the two other knits that I stitched somewhere.
these over here?
On the cactus?
Down here.
Down there, yep. There we go. So we've got some shirts here. We'll show you. So this is that same knit fabric, all right? And this is the one that actually, this turned out well. So you can see very gently on the outside edge here that I did actually hoop this. And I used a fusible no-show mesh on the back, all right? And I did take the time to actually trim in between the pieces so that the shirt, when
can move.
Right, I still have a little bit of that stretch in there. So, I mean, not a ton, but I have a little bit. But this is, aside the fact that I would never really put this design on this
that Fabric?
knit fabric
No?
because you can't really see it.
Really?
It just happens to be the knit fabric that I had.
All right. You're no
But
fun.
I tried to do something that, you know, it had a lot of satin stitching because it tends to want to pull in and sort of distort. So this would work. What Lisa did over here would give us the same result. We would be able to do that, and we would be able to get this in our hoop, and we wouldn't have to worry about this
Right.
stretching.
And I can see that you also floated a tearaway.
I did use a tear. I always use a
She
tearaway.
always uses the tearaway.
I do. I'd
It's
rather.
like her buddy.
It is. It's like my. What do you say when you're a kid? Your security blanket. It's my
yes.
security blanket.
Can't do anything without it.
Can't do anything without it. So this one did not go well at all. So this is not fused, right? So I completely floated it. I hooped this. I slid the tearaway underneath it, and then I
Floated the
I
top fabric?
floated the top fabric on here. And
that explains everything.
yeah, it's terrible. So it didn't even it started to go on an angle. It didn't line up the letters. My lines don't line up, and then the whole thing just shifted. So it got shifty.
It got shifty. So if you compare, look at the glasses here. You can see that this is supposed to be down here. Those letters are literally on top of the glasses instead of.
And like it didn't do anything right. So
Big difference in that proper. So hooping and stabilizing prior to versus that non-fusing is such a difference. So when we talk about fusing, and we get that phone call all the time of, you know, well, why did you fuse it? And we always ask, well, did you fuse it? Well, no. Well, you know, that's going to be that answer. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, that certainly makes that difference. So you want to do that one?
fusing makes all the difference. Now let's do your shirts first.
All right. So I did the same thing on the same shirt. I did hoop it, but over here I have, this is a moisture wicking shirt. So uber stretch, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Tons of stretch everywhere. It's not that it's super thin. This is actually one of the heavier ones. I've actually had to work on thinner ones than this. But it is got stabilizer through the whole hoop, but I didn't fuse it because I was trying to be bad.
It's hard to be bad.
It is really
sometimes.
hard to be bad. So I did not fuse it. So it's literally just there behind it. You can see I have some hoop burn there. And my design is it's not anything I would like to use personally.
Yep.
So I have fill stitches that are gaping here in my sun.
It's like the Grand Canyon.
It is just really, really bad. I've got puckering all along here. It's not terrible, but definitely if I were doing that for someone else, I would not be able to give that to them because that is just absolutely atrocious. So over here, this is what I do when I'm doing moisture wicking.
Yep.
So first thing that I did is I took my bottle of Cheerio Magic and I sprayed the living daylights out of it.
Yep.
And then I left it and it dried, it air dried. I didn't press it. I didn't do anything. I let it air dry. Once it was air dried, then I fused to the back. So this is fused. Now I can hit that again with my iron and peel that back, and then I won't get the little white spots. So when I go to actually give this back to somebody, I would fuse that first, and then it would remelt so that when I go to peel that up, it would very easily come back up. This is that heavy tearaway, so it's just going to come right off there nice and simply. That was just a float, did not hoop that. There's another one. Yay! All right, I got my hoop up front here. And I have a floater on top as well. So I've got my topper. So tearaway on the bottom, starched, fused, and topper on the top. So now when I'm tearing this apart, you can see I have a completely beautiful sun. There is absolutely no shifting or puckering around the flower. All of that, it looks stunning. I mean, it's exactly what it's supposed to look like. And that is perfect. So at this point, I could throw that in my washing machine. That would go away, and boom, I'd be done.
Yes.
So if you have to work on something that is a moisture wicking shirt, which is this uber stretchy yuck,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I always starch the shirt first, which is a pain,
It is. But it's
but
so
it
worth
works.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely works. I use Cheerio Magic. I have used Best Press. It doesn't work as well, though Best Press 2 might.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that personally because I have Cheerio Magic since I got that before Press 2 came out. So I use the Cheerio Magic, and I hit it pretty good, and then I let it dry, fuse on the back, and then hoop it, topper, float, and stitch.
Yep.
And I have not had any issues since I've started doing that. When I originally started, I mean, I went through a lot
Yeah.
of test shirts before I figured out what worked, and this is what works. And I mean, there's no stretch there. There's no puckers anywhere, not between anything there. So this is what absolutely works for these god-awful shirts. Whoever
Yep.
invented these should be shot.
Right? So when your design looks like this, right? And you've got a lot of, it's kind of like, it just falls into itself.
Yep.
In this general vicinity. And this is kind of like, we were talking earlier about what happens when you have a shirt at home and you get it and it looks great at the store and then you've done some sort of a wash to it or something
Right.
else.
And when I go to wash this, oh
Yeah,
God,
it's gonna just
cave in.
more.
So this is, I don't care. I graduated from there, but you know. So this is a purchased shirt, and this was embroidered. It looks like they tried. I mean, this has an actual cutaway. Oh, maybe tearaways.
Maybe tearaway. Yeah.
But I mean, they put some stuff back there. It certainly got, but there's puckers all the way around. And again, this is
Stretchy.
stretchy yuck, right? And so this was a purchased shirt from a company
That should know better.
should know better and certainly should have enough money to pay somebody to do that right. I
Right.
mean, if I can do it right, whoever they've got doing it should be able to, right? So this is something that you can look at the store and flip it over and go, you know, you should be able to see a little edge of stabilizer around that. That should be, you know, you don't want just a tearaway.
No.
There needs to be a cutaway underneath that to maintain that stitch. And it is unfortunately not there in most purchased embroiders.
Right?
So that is the way to do those. So there's my 10 cents for the day. You get more than 2 cents. You get all 10.
So that is what it looks like when it goes bad and how to correct it.
How to correct it.
So most of the time when people are using those stretchy type stabilizers.
You did not use toppers on yours, correct?
I did not. No, there's really no nap for it, so I
Right.
don't think that a topper, it's kind of one of those times where we talked about, a lot of people will tell you to put a topper on there, but the reality is it's probably not going to increase the look of the design at all.
No.
It's certainly not going to make that design more noticeable. It was a poor design choice on fabric that was too busy. I probably should have just flipped it over for all intents and purposes and just embroidered on the wrong side, but it was too late by the time it's what I had.
Well,
so I did not.
I have tried those without the topper.
Yeah.
And they definitely work better with.
Yes.
Because for whatever reason, that type of fabric just sucks in that thread. It just sinks in there and it doesn't sit up pretty.
Yeah.
And so to keep it above it, that's why I use the topper, and it just, for whatever reason, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Even though there's no real loft on there, it
Yeah.
just makes the difference. So sometimes, even when your mind says it shouldn't need it, give it a try, because sometimes you're going to see that difference and it's going to make it all worthwhile.
Yes.
And toppers really aren't that expensive.
No, no, they're definitely worth the effort. I really wanted to bring in Dave's shirts because his shirts for the city of Ann Arbor are they're terrible. They are that type of material, and the design is it's like bulletproof, and it's a circle, and then there's his name underneath it, and so literally the circle just kind of caves in on itself, and then his name is like it's just like a twisted thing. No amount of ironing makes that lay flat. And it just, but he didn't want me to call out. Obviously I called out the city of Ann Arbor. Sorry, he didn't want me to show that on TV, so I didn't bring those in. But yeah, that was his is a perfect example. Every time I see it, I just think to myself, I don't want to say anything because I don't want them to ask me to do it.
It's just one of those that are.
It's not that hard.
It's not. But obviously, I mean, it took me multiple tries to figure out the recipe that it worked. And, you know, that shirt's a little bit thicker than a lot of them that I end up having to do for my friends that suckered me into saying yes. So, you know, it's just one of those things. So what do you have here?
So next I have some plain like quilter's cotton fabric. So this is a fabric. It's by Moda, so we know it's a good quality fabric. It's not a I'm trying to take a picture here. It's not a quality issue of the fabric. So this is, by all intents and purposes, based on the quantity of stitches and the quantity of stabilizer I had, this totally should have just been flat.
Okay.
But it's not.
Oh, there's little bumpies.
Yeah, so there's nothing pre-treated on.
That's like.
Right? It's totally. And so there was nothing treated on this fabric. It's basically just the fabric, cut off the bolt, and then I have some no-show mesh because I figured this would be nice to keep with the project. And then I have my famous
Security blanket.
My security blanket on there. But basically what happened is, and this is what I see everybody do, they take it out of their hoop and it kind of looks okay, and then you hit it with some steam or water or your iron, and then what happens is this fabric right here, it shrinks because it's cotton, and that's what it does. And so that's basically what
you're
all
seeing
of
there.
This was perfectly flat until it was until I hit it with some water, and then it just gave in. So, and it just really, really wrinkled. So it didn't matter the quantity of stabilizer I had in there.
The fabric
itself, it shrank. So, because I should have made sure that this was either A, I'm never going to introduce it to water, or B, I should have made sure that fabric was shrunk ahead of time. So, second try, this one, I did make sure that my fabric was starched. And I did add a Fusible to the back. This is not my favorite Fusible. This is a different brand. It doesn't really matter what brand.
Only because she was out of her favorite.
I know, right? But let me tell you, it shrank. So I did not, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to show what happens with like SF101. This could be Kimberbell, it could be the OESD version, it could be SF101. It doesn't matter. They all of them, and I repeat, all of them do this. So while overall this is relatively flat, there are a lot of wrinkles in between the areas over here where the fabric, it's not the actual fabric itself, it's the stuff underneath it that when I introduced water to it, the
underlying stabilizer shrunk.
Yes, the interfacing underneath it actually shrank, which bubbled the fabric pieces. So it's not.
And it's a little hard for you to see it on camera, but there's literally little bumps.
There you go. You can kind of see them now.
Little ridges here. Can you guys? I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's actual bumps. It looks like a really bad dirt road.
Yep. And they're all around.
And that is literally from the underlying fuse.
Yep. So if I pull this back, you'll see, might even be easier to see on the back a little bit. you can kind of see the wrinkles underneath, right? It's not the top layer. It's this.
It's not the no-show. It's
this.
this fusible here.
Yep. So there, you can see the wrinkles. It's really hard to get wrinkles to show up on camera, but they're there. There we go. That is this stuff here.
Those puckers are from the fusible puckering after the whole thing was done.
Yeah, and again, because that part wasn't pre-shrunk. So
Yep.
if you're using any of those other types that I mentioned, you're going to want to make sure that you
pre-shrink it before you
pre-shrink that.
fuse it if you're not using something that is already pre-shrunk. So the key here is, one, buy the right stuff to begin with, or buy the bag that we're providing it with, or two, pre-shrink and know what's going to happen so that you can prevent these problems ahead of time. So that's our goal here, is to make sure that we can teach you guys how to end up with the correct result no matter what you have, so that you know what's going to happen. So you need to be able to identify what's going to happen to this in step A before I do it, step B while I'm doing it, and step C when I wash it.
Yeah.
When I'm already done and I wash it for the first time, what's it going to look like when it comes out of the wash?
Exactly.
Because all of those things need to be thought about. If you're never going to wash it, then you don't have to worry about step C. So never going to introduce it to water? All right, we can take that out of the equation. If we're, but you need to be able to look at those things, because all of that is going to play a part in, it doesn't just have to look good in the hoop.
right.
And so these are those things that we're talking about today.
Yeah, water really messes with your embroidery designs. So water, starch, best press, all of those things, Terrio Magic, because they will affect how the water and the fabric react to each other. So this one has that same stuff on the back, right? But you can see it's perfectly flat here. There are no ripples or wrinkles or anything. So all I did was I pre-shrank this piece. So I introduced this to Best Press. I literally cut the piece, I sprayed it with Best Press, I watched it pull in, and then I did the same thing to my fabric. And once the two pieces were done sort of sucking in, I fused them together. And then all I did was use my famous tearaway. So when I pull this away from the back here, it is really flat on the outside. So it lays perfectly flat. It handles the decorative stitches and all of that stuff really well.
In theory, I mean, fonts can be very difficult because fonts can pull.
Fonts can go wrong badly.
It can be ugly when you use font. You just never know what you're going to get.
When fonts go bad.
When fonts go bad. We could do like a whole thing on when fonts go bad.
Yes.
So are those what we're doing?
Yeah.
Is this?
Yep.
Okay. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So we'll talk about the towel in a minute.
Yeah.
But
so we wanted to show you how introducing water really does react. So these two pieces are, we're starting out with the same size. So you can see that they are the same size here, and they are the same length and the same width. So we're starting out with the same. So we'll set that one aside. We will not introduce that to any water. And so this is a little bit of the Best Press. And sometimes you really have to get it a little bit wet in order to see what happens. And then when you go to dry this, you can make this any size you want. You do want to be careful that if you are going to use your iron, if you are impatient, that again, you are pressing on this to make sure that it stays the same size. Because if you iron, you will stretch. So, the fabric has stretch. So you will stretch it right back. And then what will happen is
distorts.
When you get it wet again, it will come back in and it will come back to its normal size.
Spit all over me.
I'm so sorry. So
I did shower.
here we have it staying pretty close on this side. And now it's starting to,
You can see the.
yeah, it really changed this side. So there's always going to be one side that shrinks more than another. I'll zoom in a little.
It's literally at least an eighth.
Yep. So we pretty much stayed the same in our length here, but it substantially changed in the width of our fabric.
So you can see we're lined up on that side, but it shrank at least an eighth.
And so if you think about what happens when you're working with different pieces and parts, if all of them are going to start to shrink about 1/8 of an inch, right? Now you're going to have some real big problems because it's no longer going to fit together the way that you intended.
That is what happens in the hoop.
Yeah.
After the hoop.
After the hoop, when you take it out.
Right? So all of these things, when you go to press and you spray it and then you press it and then parts start shifting. When other parts don't shift, then you start getting skews and ripples and things that you don't want. So this is what really, really starts to play parts in, you need to get a balanced playing field before you start stitching.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and what is this one? That one is OESD?
This is the OESD poly mesh, and we'll just spritz a little corner here. And so you can already see it starting to sort of distort over on the side there.
This is bending in right here.
It starts to bend in. And where's the corner for them now that I've zoomed in?
So you can see that this isn't a straight line anymore. It's starting to bend in a little bit there. If your stabilizer is doing this, again, once you've fused it or whatever to your fabric, so you did everything that you were supposed to do with your fabric. You pre-washed it, you pre-shrunk it, you did whatever, and then you fuse this.
Yep.
And then you stitch it. And then you're like, what the heck happened?
Yep.
I did everything right. This then shrank. That's where those puckers came from.
Yes.
So those are the things that you guys need to look out for. So you need to level that playing field. It's not just the fabric that needs to be looked at. It needs to be all parts so that everything is there. So that is why the Easy Tee is such a fantastic piece, is because it is pre-shrunk and you don't have to worry about it. The Leabu no-show, we haven't seen any shrinkage with, so you don't need to worry about that when you're using that. I haven't had it with Floriani's, but I haven't used Floriani's in a long time, so I've been using the Leabu.
I feel like I can shrink anything.
But those are the things to think about. And you always want to look.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. If you think about, if you had just like a 2-inch by 3-inch piece, because your name was underneath there, and you washed that stabilizer is going to smush in, and then that's where it starts to draw in, and it is absolutely no fun whatsoever. So really, as you're learning about your stabilizers, take the time to, cut off a little strip, a couple of inches, and introduce it to water. It doesn't have to be Material Magic, because that costs. Just put some in a spray bottle and see what happens, because it really does make a big difference in the overall project. And then here is an example of why you want to use your topper. So on the top.
So these two are the same font size.
Yep.
You can read, if you don't look at the word no even, look at the difference between topper and topper. That is the exact same word stitched with a topper and without a topper. Look at the amount of green showing through on that. That is insane.
It is crazy.
So this is the reason that you would want to use a topper to level that playing field, is because it's going to lift those stitches and give it a nice solid surface to stitch on. So it's not as noticeable here, but you can still see these are the same size. And again, you can almost not even see this one versus here. It's harder to see because the letters are small anyways, but this one's almost completely gone. So very, very big difference to having a topper versus not having a topper. Again, I don't recommend that you put a topper on everything, but there's always a time and a place. It
doesn't really make a difference.
So when you don't have, this is just a standard quilting cotton. And when you don't have a big variance like the Terry, you're not going to see a big, this is the exact same design. There's not really much of a difference. So there's times when it doesn't matter. Don't waste your money.
Right.
Okay. Neither Sarah or I will try to tell you, you should totally use a topper here. We're not going to do that. Neither one of us will. But we are absolutely going to tell you to do it here.
Yep.
All right. And for me, I would put on, for this one and this one, I would put on a heat. This one I would probably put on water because that would be way too hard.
Yeah. It would be hard to get that away.
It would be hard to get that out.
Yeah.
So this size, I would be using a heat. And this one I would probably use a water soluble because picking that out would be a pain in the rump. All right, so let's talk about the towel now since it's right there.
Yep.
So we have a lot of times blamed Stabilizer for what's gone wrong. And sometimes it's not the stabilizer. Sometimes it's the design that's causing the problem.
It's not the stabilizer's
fault,
always.
Right? It's not always. A lot of the times it is. So this is a recipe that I typed up, and I did. So I did it with 2 different types of thread, same exact design. And yes, this is a real recipe. So if you want to freeze your frame, and I'm just kidding. So this is a large enough font. It came out really great. This is and for anybody that this doesn't make sense to, send me a message personally and I'll explain it individually. I'm not going to go into it here. This is a true type font. This is not a digitized font. All right, which means it was not intended for embroidery. So you can see the stitches are really kind of almost like squiggles of thread. They're not nice flat little zigzag pieces. And it's a little bit difficult to read and make out those. They're kind of balled up, jumbled, lots of jump stitches, and so on and so forth. This was done with our standard embroidery thread. Same exact thing done on the other side. And I did this with what is called fine line or micro thread. Much cleaner. Still have, unfortunately, all of the jump threads, but I can read all of that. So sometimes what we are stitching with is the problem, not necessarily the stabilizer that is underneath of it.
Absolutely. Sometimes just by changing the type of thread, it will make a big difference, especially with fonts.
So fonts can be the nemesis of things. So again, this was not a digitized font. So there was no one that sat down and actually created this font for us to stitch. This one is what is called a small font, same basic thing, and it's actually better. But this is actually the standard thread, but it is a small font. But you can see these are still really clumped threads.
Yep.
All right, so not what I would like, especially if I was giving this as a gift. This was breaking threads like every 2 letters. So I turned off my jumps and then I ended up with that. But it stitched a lot better.
It does. Sometimes turning off that jump stitch really does.
Look at that clean stitch. I can read all of that. This was a digitized font. This is called a small font that was digitized. I'm sorry about all the jump threads. I haven't cleaned them up yet. But look at how clean that is. And that is with a fine line with a digitized font. So sometimes when you're looking at something, it might not be the stabilizer that is causing your problem. It might be the thread that you need to make some adjustment with. So we just wanted to kind of point out, hey, there are some other things out there that you can adjust to make that better.
Absolutely.
So, and those were done on sticky.
Yes. Sticky stabilizer.
Sticky stabilizer.
To the rescue.
To the rescue. So let's talk about this guy.
Yeah. So we'll do this one live. All right. So I put in there, don't pull. The thing that we see people do all the time, right? This is perfectly flat in this hoop.
It looks really good, doesn't it?
It looks like when I take this out, it's going to be just perfect. There's no wrinkles. There's no wrinkles or ripples. I'm just combining those lines together. But I did what everybody else does. I put my stabilizer in there. Now my stabilizer and my fabric are not fused together. If I had my stabilizer and my fabric fused together or stuck together, I would not have been able to do this. But what I did was I took this fabric and I made sure that this was drum tight.
Ding, ding, ding.
And watch what happens when we pull this out.
It goes bing.
It goes ping. All right, and now I have literally a ring around this entire design with extra fabric. So this is never going to lay perfectly flat because I've got...
You got that stretch all the way around it.
Exactly. I stretched and pulled this. So it is no longer flat. This is, I would say, the #1 thing that people do. They put their stuff in their hoop and they yank on it so that it stays perfectly straight. And that is a big no-no.
And it looks perfect in the hoop.
Right.
But as soon as you take it out, then all of a sudden things look really, really bad. So, and if the circle wasn't here, we'd have the puckered lines coming out of all of the letters.
Exactly.
It's the same concept. The reason that you don't see those is because the circle is out here, and that's why you're singing that ring around there.
Let me grab a pen. So I was gonna, let's draw a line on here so that they can see what happens when we do that. Okay, so I have the fabric in here, right? And now I'll draw a straightish line. All right, so now I have a line. I know it's not in the center of the hoop, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, now watch what happens to the line. The line is a representation of the grain of the fabric. So when I grab this fabric and I pull it, you can see exactly what happens, right? It is no longer straight. So every time you do this in your hoop, you are
but there's a wrinkle over here.
Right?
I want to pull.
I know.
But it's wrong.
And this is what happens, and this is why...
And we just keep going.
Right, we just keep trying because we want that fabric to be super flat inside.
But we don't want that.
Yes, and that is essentially what happens. As soon as I take that out, it springs back to its natural shape. Kind of like if you've ever had a pair of pants. You know, you try them on at the store and everything is great, and then you wash them in that little inseam,
and you kind of go,
and it doesn't fit in the right spot now.
Nope, never had that problem myself.
So same thing, right? When you wash something, it goes back to its natural straight of grain, and so this will pop back to its natural straight of grain.
Absolutely,
So
sure will.
This is the #1 thing that people do.
So to fix that, Don't pull.
Yes.
That took way too long.
If you put it in the hoop and the fabric is not taut enough, tighten your screw a little bit.
Tighten the screw a little bit and rehoop it.
Pop it back out and put it back in. Do not, I repeat, do not pull on your...
None of this.
Yes, don't do that.
Don't do that.
No, bad, very bad. Okay.
All right, you got a whole stack of stuff here.
We got some stuff. So when we were talking about sticky stabilizers earlier, the reason sticky stabilizer might be a better option is because we might have fabrics like this that you can't actually hoop. We have 2 questions here. To shrink stabilizer, do you wash the roll and hang dry? You can, and I have been known to do that. Like literally cut a roll of stabilizer a little bit bigger than my actual hoop, and I actually, rather than hang to dry, I would just wash it and dry it like normal. So exactly the way that I was gonna wash it and dry it later on, and then I just slide them underneath like my cutting mat at home and they stay flat. So yes, you can absolutely do that. And do you hoop fabric versus floating and basting? i.e. quilter's cotton. So I'm going to tell you, my personal opinion is that if you can hoop it, hoop it. You will get the best result when you hoop. Floating and basting is okay, but it's never going to give you the same result. It's never going to hold the fabric the same way as it would if it was in your hoop. Basting does a nice job, but it's
not the same.
It doesn't take the place of. I would only baste and I only float if the pattern that I'm using calls for it because of the type of project it is. Maybe my piece is smaller on the inside than everything else. But if I can hoop it, I do hoop it.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons.
And if you can use it, fuse it.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. So in a pinch, floating and basting is okay, but if you can get it fused or hooped, you will be better off in the long run.
Yep.
So
different depending upon the types of your fabrics. So we've got some, not your average Joes here. We've got like the velours and the suedes and things.
Yep.
What happens when we put those in the hoop is what we lovingly call a hoop burn. And so we've had these sitting in the hoop for a little while, so hopefully you'll actually see that.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice piece.
Yes.
Yep.
So the sad thing is they generally don't come out.
Yep.
So the reason that we want to use a sticky or possibly magnetic, if you have that option available to you, is because once you get those in these, a lot of times you can't remove. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So you can still see that even though we're trying to rub that off.
It kind of crushes the fabric and really.
So that one's really bad.
Yeah.
So you can see that that is not something that you would like to,
and
to
there
have
is
in
no
there.
getting
There is no getting that out.
It literally crushed and damaged the fibers in that general area.
So that is why we have those stickies. There are some things that you absolutely cannot hoop. So you would either want to use that magnetic hoop if you have it, or a sticky, depending upon what your options are available to you. And no, the magnetic hoops don't leave that burn. So this, like all of these, they push that down, which is what that is that downward motion, which is pinching between those.
Yep.
The magnet is a completely flat piece, so there's no.
Yeah, it just lays on top.
It just lays right on top, so it just sits right on top of it instead of a interior piece. So there is no burn on a magnetic hoop. So
it is a better option if you have finicky fabrics that you could get a hoop burn. And because sometimes maybe introduce, again, a difficulty and particular projects. If I didn't want any stabilizer to be remaining afterwards, then there is really no good way to baste it in the hoop and float it. So you do have to, again, determine how you want the end result to be and work your way
backwards to seeing the answer from there. So we talked about lace. There is definitely a question of how much stabilizer. That does not look good there at all. It's white on white.
Maybe that. There we go.
That looks so much better. Like it just blended right in. So, when you are working on, really delicate things, your brain is going to say, oh, there's not very many stitches in there. I probably only need one layer of mesh. I would not use one layer of mesh on anything.
Right.
I think I did that once when I first started, and that was it.
Yep.
And I immediately bumped to 2 layers of mesh. I didn't know about Badge Master, so it was 2 for a small project and more depending upon how big my project was from there. So minimum of 2 layers of mesh, or 1 and 1, 1 mesh, 1 Badge Master, depending upon what it is that you're doing. So we've got a couple different samples of some lace pieces here. And then when you go to rinse, These are OESD files. This is basically what I generally do. I'm sure that's what you generally do as well. You'll just stitch. That word.
Stitch first,
Stitch,
then trim.
So you can see this had one badge master, and then on the back it has the mesh. Trim as close as you can so that you're getting rid of as much as possible, and then you would rinse to get that. This is the metallic.
Yep.
So this is that King Star metallic in both the bobbin and in the top thread. So this is an OESD.
Those are new coasters, right?
New
Celestial
coasters. That was the bonus. How does their bonus work?
If you spend $10 or more on the OESD or Scissortail site, which you can link right through our website, then there is you get a bonus design at the end of the month.
These
they
were
call
their
them
bonus
sweet treats.
Yeah, these were their bonus. There's a third one. So there's a third one of those. So as we said earlier, one layer of Badge Master, and then these are some Kimberbell ones that when you're doing this many stitches, you need to make sure that you are supporting what's going on, and you could have a very sad moment like that little guy if you don't. So make sure that you are doing enough stabilizer in there, and quite frankly, I would go with too much.
Yeah.
If you are concerned.
Absolutely.
Because it's a sad, sad day when you spent hours stitching something and it didn't come out because you just didn't use enough stabilizer. That's a lot of thread and a lot of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of stitches. There's lots and lots of stitches.
Pam's question, I believe it's $10 on designs. So they sell individual designs as well as design packs. If you spend $10, or if you're part of a spree club, you would automatically get those sweet treats.
Do you want to talk about?
Yeah,
those?
these are some of those. I'm a big fan of these little guys here. They're super fun to stitch out. These are a bigger version of the ones that I did earlier. I think it looks much nicer on the darker fabric, but I did it on lighter fabric because that's what I had. These are just some of those. And again, this one, you can really see on the back. This is that easy tee on the back. You can see, how perfect it fuses to the back of this. There's no bubbles, there's no nothing. It really just adheres nicely. I surged around the edge because I manhandle this for samples a lot. But yeah, it fuses super nice, and it doesn't pull away. So it's a really, I can't say enough things about that product. This is a similar piece. I just tacked it to the back of a canvas piece just so that I could do something. Apparently I've left a little of myself on it too. So, and again, you've got a little bit of that easy tee on the back.
Take a picture, dude.
And this. I don't actually. She asked if I used black easy tee. I only use white. There's only
I
so
haven't
much
ever
room.
used black either, but we do carry it because
we do. Some people are much more
like
particular. I use black soft and stable, not the white stuff because it's a tiny
little bit thinner.
So I just happen to just use the white. Dee wants to know, if you are using King Star in the bottom, do you need to adjust your bobbin case?
Nope.
No, when you have the same thread in the top and the bottom, it doesn't really matter.
No.
If you can't see one pulling to the other, it just kind of marries and meshes.
Yeah, if it does end up pulling, you're not going to see where, is basically what she's saying. So it wouldn't matter even if it did show, it would just be the same color. But I've never had an issue with like the ridge, like that edge of where they do. I've never had an issue of it showing. So it still pulls down enough. So nope, it just works like a breeze.
Yeah.
Works wonderful, wonderful.
This is a project. This is a lot of heavy stitching on cork. And on this one, I actually used I did use the Cutaway the sticky cutaway. I was able to stick it down and then I just left it in underneath it. But I was really concerned because there was so many stitches. I didn't actually want it to perforate through. That sometimes happens if you put too many stitches
In cork,
on
yeah.
cork or leather or vinyl. It becomes an applique. So I didn't want that to happen. These are Kimberbell projects. You know, she does a lot of those in the hoop projects, and you know, we've got a lot of stitching going on around here. So the letters were used. I don't think I used a topper on this one.
Probably not.
No, I thought about it on the top one here. I did a bigger one, and I didn't like the way that came out. But here we've got all kinds of, it's just kind of like mixed media here.
Did you use a cutaway?
Mm-hmm.
No show?
Did I use
Nope,
no show?
nope,
It feels like a
looks-
cutaway.
Looks white.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, usually that's like a medium cutaway.
Yeah, this is just a medium cutaway. You can see that inside here. It's not translucent.
Yep.
So
So there's,
that.
do you want your big one, or you think we're good there?
I think we're good.
So, and then the last couple that we have here, this is, I keep doing it upside down. Why do I do that? This is very old. I have had this at least 15 years. At least 15 years. Very, very long time. This is actually a design from Anita Good Designs, one of their Christmas collections. And I put a design on the hood too, wherever he's at. Ho, ho, ho. That one doesn't lay quite as nicely because it's always getting bent up so much. But this is at least 15 years old, and there is 2 different layers of no-show mesh in here, one and then a second on an angle to give it a little bit more oomph. Because there's so many stitches that are in there. The stitches have been caught on things, and his poor face, he's getting old, he's getting more wrinkles.
Yeah.
But the stitches themselves are really holding up nicely, except for the few that I've caught on random sharp surfaces over the years. But the design itself has been holding up very well. So it's literally just no-show mesh back there. And this is one of my favorite Christmas sweatshirts. So, too bad I'm getting too fat to wear it. But
Time for a new one.
time to make a new one is right, so I'll have to do that. And then we talked about blue jeans. So jeans these days are really not the same as what they once were. And these are a couple of different things that we have sample-wise from blue jeans. So this one is also pretty old. It's probably about, I don't know, 8+ years. And this one, again, has a couple layers of no-show, which you wouldn't think blue jean would need that much support. But one, this has a crap ton of stitches in it. This tail has just so much happening. There's a ton in there. But it's not like the old blue jean that we're used to. A lot of these, especially in jackets,
They're stretched.
they're very, very stretchy, and they're much thinner than they used to be. So when you go to look at something like this, whether they be actual blue jeans, shorts, a skirt, or whatever, but it's denim, you really need to look at what it is, because you can't just think it's denim, it's going to be really secure and stable, because that's not necessarily going to be the case. You really need to prepare that based on what you're feeling and seeing, because it's not just, oh, it's denim, it's going to be great. That is really not necessarily the case anymore.
Nope.
So really, really look at that. This is a completely different type of denim. This is one of the blank totes from Kimberbell. There isn't
There's not
the
much
stretch really in here like there is in the wearables. However, you said you used a topper,
Yeah, you can
because
still
you
see.
had, what was it that you were going over?
It just, so the first one that I did, they kind of fell into, I just fell into the stitches a little bit. So
Gotcha.
I started and then
Just decided you were gonna,
it really did change. So you can see, like, I started here and there's nothing. And then I was like, well, I'm going to add it. So it really just kind of helped.
Just gave it a little bit more
Yeah,
oomph.
they really just wanted to fall in.
Yeah, I can see the A doesn't have as much pop.
It doesn't have as much pop. So it's just one of those types of things where sometimes when you're stitching along, you're like, well, okay, maybe I should. Doesn't hurt.
Never hurts.
No.
Absolutely not. So, you know, it's always those little things. But this is actually a much more secure denim than this is.
It is. And there is a fusible.
You did fuse on the back, too.
Yeah, on the back. But even on this side, it's got just a small
just a little
amount,
bit.
a lot of stretch this way, but not much in this direction. But this just kind of made it so that you have none, which of course is nice for when you're doing
that embroidery. Yeah, absolutely.
Not when you're trying to wear it, but
True statement. So this is kind of a combo of samples. This is multiple pieces of lace that I put on this jacket. So the lace itself, I did not stitch, and people ask me that all the time. Well, oh, did you stitch that right on the jacket? And I'm like, no way. That would have eaten up this jacket, and I would have just, I don't think I could have stabilized that enough because, again,
a lot of poke holes to it too.
You know, the amount of stretch that is in these, you know, these jackets is just insane. So I did stitch the lace separately, and I forget now how many layers of stabilizer I used, but I want to say I had 4 because these are such large pieces, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't start it in one spot and then not line up when I finished, because each one of these pieces took at least 4 hours.
At least,
So it was a lot. And then I just sewed them on. I just went around the edges and sewed them on when I was finished, because I didn't want it to kill my jacket.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, a stabilizer lesson for a couple of different ways of, you know, making sure that you know where you're putting it and what it could handle versus how much stabilizer you would need to put under something that large too.
Exactly.
So, couple of different things there to cover. So, can you ever over stabilize? If you're wearing something, then yes, you know, you can have something be so stiff that, you know, you're wearing just this really uncomfortable piece that isn't comfortable and looks awkward and things like that. If it's a wall hanging, something like that, probably not. I mean, other than wasting of the money that you've got in there.
Right.
Which I suppose we may have all put a few more dollars in something at some point than we really should have. But you can use too much, but it's not going to hurt unless it's going to make something uncomfortable or look wrong.
Right.
The bottom line is it's really your money.
It is, yeah. So, and again, what is your end result?
Right.
You know,
what's the end game?
Are you going to wear it if it's stiff as a board, or scratchy or whatever? And the answer might be yes, and the answer might be no. So you kind of have to decide what you want with that. But I would use, we both probably err on more stabilizer versus less.
Absolutely. And the great thing is that floating of that tearaway underneath is going to add so much, but it won't add in the end result of that stiffness, because the bulk, it's only going to be under the stitches itself.
Yep.
So the bulk of it is going to disappear. So, you know, that is where I think both of us would go if we were like, oh, I really want to add a little bit more to this. I think that's where both of us would pull in to add that extra something.
Yep.
So if you're feeling that urge of, I really feel like this needs more, or if it's starting to pull somewhere, stop it. Add a piece.
Right.
You know, don't just keep going. If you see something that says, hey, this doesn't look like it's going to make it, stop what you're doing and add some before you keep going, because you know, you don't want to waste.
Nope.
You don't want to waste all of that.
No, you don't. So just a couple of other quick things we wanted to talk about. We are almost
there.
done.
Yep.
We just wanted to point out that stabilizers, all the manufacturers use codes. So they use a different code for their different colors. It's not a universal code system. So it may not, don't go always looking for the purple one thinking it's your tearaway, because it really might not be, depending on which brand you're using. So pay attention to the labeling system on your brands if you have multiple brands like we do. And then I wanted to talk about the slat bands. So if you are purchasing a Leabu Bag bundle, you are going to get a set of 12 stabilizer bands. As a thank you for registering for the event, you got a free download that allowed you to download some cards, which we're going to show you in just a second, that you can use for labeling your bands. So, here we go. So we got all of the stabilizers. You've got your slat bands, which came in this beautiful container. And it does come with, yeah. A label pen so that you can mark those up if you would like to. But we included these beauties in here. So they are kind of color coded. So we have pink, which is kind of code for red, which is kind of code for some sort of fusible. So you've got all of those. Dun, da, da, da. So we've got fusible webbing, sewable and non-sewable. And we have heat away toppers and fusible no-show. And underneath on all of those cards, it's going to tell you what type of thing that you would want to use that for. So for instance, fusible no-show, you're going to use to embellish clothing, especially knits, and pillowcase bands and things such as those types of projects, and so on and so forth on each of those tags. They all have a nice handy dandy punch hole in the corner for you. Underneath the, supposed to be purple, didn't really come out purple, but there you go. We have tearaway, tearaways and other miscellaneous whatnots, sticky tearaway, sticky cutaway, heavy tearaway, and no-show mesh. And again, a description of what you might want to use on those, along with a lovely hole there. And then heavy wash away in the blue, of course, water. Yep, wash away toppers, wash away mesh, and wash away sticky, which we use the generic name so that it doesn't matter what brand that you ended up buying. Yep. These would be able to be used for anything. So these are coming laminated, punched, the whole shebang if you purchased the bag. All right, and then you also get these lovely little tag hangers. Yeah.
All right, and you're gonna take your hanger and you're gonna go through here, and that just slides super easy right through there. Dun, da, da, da. And then we're in purple. You slide that right through here. Put it on there, and we have a label that doesn't have to be labeled, so that you always have that, sorry. There you go. So that is a very easy labeling system. It will work with whatever brand you have in your stash of goodies. And on that label, not only does it tell you what it is, but it tells you what you want to use it on.
Yep.
So that is the little wonderful stash of goodies that are a little extra something in your bundle.
Yep. So if you purchase the bundle already, or you're getting ready to, you will get your slat bands, and you will get your hangers, and you will get your laminated cards. If you are not purchasing our bundle, that is okay, but you did register for this event, you will get the download to make your own cards. Obviously, when you download them, they will not be laminated and have the holes punched.
It won't happen,
but you will get the papers. And Kathleen asks, how do you register? So right at the bottom of the scrolling screen here where it says shop with us, if you go to lebu-sewing-center.myshopify.com, you can look in the What's New section, and you should see Stabilizer Bootcamp. You can go ahead and you can register for that, and when you register, you will get a free download that automatically populates to you to tell you to download here, and you will be able to get those cards. So that is how easy it is to register for that. You will be able to register from now until for a long time, but if you still want to get that coupon code, we're going to give them until
End of today, right?
the end of today. So if you register, if you're watching this later on and you register, we
Long
will.
as it's still in May.
Yep, if it's still in May, we will send out another email tomorrow with anybody who has registered late with that coupon code. That coupon code will be good to get you 30% off stabilizer rolls. So maybe you already have an assortment of these rolls and you just want 1 or 2 of them. You can pick up the 1 or 2 that you need.
Yep.
But if you do want to be a bag person,
A bag person is a wonderful thing to be.
I think biddy is still a good word.
Hayden thinks they should be bag biddies.
So, just as a reminder, you can still buy a bag if you are already a bag person. You
Yes.
just wouldn't receive the physical bag. You would receive all the goodies that are in the bag. If you aren't already a bag person but would like to become a bag person, that is the only way to become one, is to buy that bundle. So $224.94 will get you into the bag club, and you will get all of the goodies that are in the bag, but not only, and honestly, that's just the first little tip of the iceberg, because that will then make you eligible for all of the bag club sales that are going to be coming and starting next month.
Yeah, yeah.
So you will then be eligible for fabric sales, needle sales, notions, fill your bag sales, more stabilizer, thread, Kimberbell, baby lock,
Yep.
brother, all this stuff, all kinds of things. And so you'll get an email that basically says, this is this month's sale. This is the online code, or you can come in store to shop. So you do not have to be local for it to work for you. We're happy to ship. And again, you'll be over that price point, so we'll ship for free. And we would love to have you be part of our club.
Yes. It's one time a year.
One
So
time a year.
Only
Yep.
one time a year can you join the exclusive
Leabu Bag Club.
Leabu Bag Club. We have adorable bags and great sales for you. So you are
lost the
saving a
bag.
ton on the bag itself. The bag itself is free, but you're saving a ton on your stabilizers, but you really will save a ton throughout the year.
Throughout the year,
Yep.
absolutely.
And the sale is usually good for like an entire week.
It's
so
at least a week. Sometimes we make it more, but
Yep,
it's
and-
at least that. It's usually like the last week of the month, and you'll get. We try for like the Wednesday previous so that you'll
Yep.
know what's going on.
it's usually the last full week.
Yep.
Yep. So hopefully that will be super exciting. And just in case you want to know, this is what I decided. It's exclusive to Leabu customers. You can only join one time of year. It's for life. And all the cool kids are members.
You get a nifty bag.
And you get a nifty bag. So if all of those other reasons are not enough, there you go. There's our fun reasons as to why you want to be involved in
Yep.
that bag.
And so thank you for all of you who have already purchased one. And I'm guarantee that it's worth it. I know that there's been a few conversations at classes and things that we've talked that everybody was saying how great the sales are. You know, I mean, it's not like, well, you get 10% off needles or you get 10% off fabric. Or
No.
it's literally like 40% off or
yeah,
30%.
30 and 40% off.
Usually it's good. It's a good price point, and it's things that only those that are in the club are privy to. So definitely worth it. Plus, everything in the bag is fantastic. So it's a great buy-in, and that gives you the eligibility for all of the other good
I
stuff.
think I
So
lost track counting.
I think so too, but we'll catch up.
Yes.
But we got occupied with samples, but we'll get caught up. So when we run out of bags, we run out. So when we hit that, we will unfortunately be done for the year. So get in and get there quick before it's
Before they're gone.
before they're gone. So we will continue to sell until they're gone, but or
almost-
until
Yeah,
whatever
we're
day.
almost halfway out.
Yep.
So, and everybody's got a little bit more time.
So, yep. Enjoy. If you have questions, you know how to reach us, and we will always be around to answer whatever we can for you. And we really appreciate you guys spending a few hours with us. Hopefully, we answered a lot of questions for you. You guys had some great questions, so we appreciate your participation. And I think we have a few things. We didn't really get there. We might draw a few names from our comment section and do some fun stuff next week.
Absolutely.
So we'll figure some stuff out. All right. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay.